the really big battle for Apple. They've been really taking it to some of the other tech giants on the privacy front. You mentioned iOS 14.5, and we saw some of these features kind of start to be announced at WWDC last year. But having to kind of opt into data collection, it's kind of something that we all do. We expect our data is going to be collected, but Apple's kind of said, well, you should be able to opt in rather than having to opt out and go through all those settings. They've certainly battled Facebook on this front a bunch. There's been a few kind of barbs thrown. Tim Cook and Zuck used to be apparently pretty close, but now they are not so close anymore. And privacy is one of the big issues between them. So I think what we're hearing for iOS 15 is the potential to have a kind of a control panel where you can see all in one spot all your privacy settings in one place. And I love this ad. Like, Apple does good advertising, but the idea of constantly being tracked and constantly being followed was something that we really saw with this ad, someone just being stalked around town. But yeah, the idea that you could go to your control panel and you could say, all right, well, is this app taking this information about me? That is available on Android, but you really do have to kind of dig into the settings, and that's been something conventionally that we've seen. So bringing it to the front and really sort of saying, we care about privacy. Of course, Apple's business model is selling hardware and services, so they don't have to make their money through ads, unlike Facebook. So it's easy for them to bring these kinds of features in. But it'll be really interesting to see if we get more developments on privacy today, and if that starts to really set an agenda in terms of what's happening in the tech space with privacy kind of as a whole. I think that'll be interesting.
There's a lot of stuff going on there on the privacy front, as you mentioned. And obviously, you know, one of Apple's big strengths is hardware. I kind of want to switch to that now, because that's kind of one of the things that it's very unclear what we're going to get, because at WWDC in the past, we have had hardware last year, but traditionally it hasn't been front and center. Obviously, being a developers conference, it's all about the software. But Ayaz, you've been following the MacBook Pro rumors. I want to know, okay, number one, what are the odds of us getting a new MacBook Pro today? And if so, are we going to see a new M2 chip, M1X? Give us the lowdown of all of the rumors and leaks that you've been across.
Yeah, so Mark Gurman of Bloomberg, who has a great track record, was talking about new MacBook Pros potentially this summer, which lines up with this event. And as you've mentioned before, hardware at WWDC is not unheard of. We've seen the new Mac Pro there. We've seen the other new Mac Pro there. We've seen other MacBooks there. Excuse me. But this rumored device is supposed to be a 14-inch and a 16-inch MacBook Pro. Whether we'll get both or one or none, that could happen today. The odds of one of these coming out today, I'm going to say, is probably 50-50. That's what I'm going to say. So I'm just going to completely hedge on that and say it's 50-50. But I personally think it's more likely than not to happen. So 51% is my actual call that we're going to see new MacBook Pros. Now, these guys would have new processors inside or systems on a chip. This wouldn't be the M1. It'd have a lot more cores. The M1 has 4 high efficiency and 4 high performance cores. This would have a lot more of that. We would have 8 high performance cores and 2 energy efficient ones, and the graphics cores would jump from 8 to 16 or 32 graphics cores. So we're talking a lot of power in these new MacBook Pros. At a developers conference, it sounds like a really great idea to give the developers something that they can work on and work on really big apps, because the rumors are pointing at new Mac Pros next year. So that makes a lot of sense, where if you had these developers working on powerful machines and they can really build software that can take advantage of Apple's incredible hardware, then they can really push the limits next year. So I think we're probably going to see something today, and we're going to see a MacBook Pro that developers are going to be excited about. And I want to say something that's really important. The rumors about this device could actually bring back ports. We're talking about an HDMI port, an SD card slot. So like if you take a photo, you don't have to like figure out a dongle to get your stuff on there. So they'd be much more Pro-like if they're MacBook Pros. That's something that I've really found to be lacking on the Pro devices when it comes to Apple at this point. And Patrick, you mentioned that too with the iPhone Pro. There's really not a lot of things that delineate the differences, but more connectivity, more Thunderbolt, more power is what these MacBook Pros should be doing.
The more ports would be amazing, because I'm currently talking to you from a MacBook Pro that is literally an octopus of USB-C dongles into other dongles. It's ridiculous. So I really hope that that is a part of WWDC today. But you bring up a great point about bringing out more of the Pro features. So iPad OS is the other big thing. Because Patrick, you kind of alluded to this before with the iPhone, but I wanted to know, in terms of the iPad OS, there's a lot of great hardware there. And Ayaz was talking about, needing to get the software to kind of come on board to bring it up to scratch, to actually really showcase what this machine can do. Because there aren't really those sort of pro level apps at the moment. Give us a bit of an idea about what do you think iPad OS might bring to the table and how that might improve the experience for the new iPad Pro.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that iPad OS is basically kind of its own flavor of iOS. So you have to have that iOS fundamental in the middle there to build off of. And now that iPad OS has to serve both A-chips iPads, like all the iPads until a month ago, and this new M1 chip iPad, which is running on the same chips as the Mac Mini and the 13-inch MacBook Pro and the new iMac. So right there you have this interesting span. We'll see that this software has to bridge. But then on the flip side, you have to think of all the users, right? You have to think there's people who want the iPad more like an iPhone. And so remember those widgets I talked about earlier? They don't work so great. They don't work like that on the iPad. They have a little kind of like a widget stack off to the left side. But it would be great to see those widgets come to the home screen. And that is one of the rumors that would see that. Also more customizations to the iPad's home screen and lock screen. But the other thing we'd like to see, though, is you alluded to pro software. So that M1 chip, in theory, you could run maybe a Mac app on it. That's completely in theory. There's been no rumors toward that. But our colleague Scott Stein had a neat idea. What about some sort of Mac mode where you could run Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro on an iPad versus having a Final Cut Pro made for iPad OS, which personally I think would be awesome, but I don't know if they're going to do that either. So it's just really, there's a big unknown, but I think the theme we're going to see a lot of this is the overlap between the hardware lines is getting more blurry. It's now time for the software to really step up, not only in the sense of security and privacy, but also in the terms of what you can do and what you want to do to customize it.
Yeah, there's so much potential there, and I think today is going to be a big reveal, hopefully delivers on the promise of the hardware. I want to do a quick time check. It's about 11 minutes before the Worldwide Developers Conference, WWDC, kicks off, or dub as we like to call it. We are not restreaming the keynote here. We will be talking and commenting throughout. So when it comes time, when the keynote does start, I'll give you the heads up to switch over to another tab. You can keep us open as well at the same time. Hopefully you can keep us company there too. And we'll give you all the updates live. Now, I did make a call out on our CNET Live hashtag on Twitter for a couple of suggestions for Mac OS 12, what the name was going to be. I've had a couple come through. Montecito was one. I also heard Los Gatos. Claire, did you have anything else that the people were talking about on the hashtag?
Look, I think I keep on thinking, of all these glorious names. I think did one of our team here mention Monterey? We've also heard Golden Gate as a potential. I'm now thinking, wouldn't it be cool to just get gritty and be like, Central City Caltrain Station, just to lean into that really hyper-local California element. But yeah, any more suggestions or any kind of comments on the show, we're going to be keeping across that CNET Live hashtag CNET Live on the Twitters. I got my notice that I've been on Twitter for 11 years today, so I live there now. It's great.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
On the local front, we had Todd say Los Gatos. We also had a Monterey as well, I've seen. So yeah, let us know your thoughts on the new macOS name. All right, so we've spoken about iOS. We've spoken about Apple's privacy stuff, potentially a new MacBook Pro. There are a couple more things, in the Apple portfolio that we might see updates to today, including Watch OS. So this might be Watch OS 8. And there are a couple of things that Apple might bring to the forefront. Obviously, we're probably not going to see any hardware, even though we've seen a couple of leaks about what the new Apple Watch Series 7 might potentially look like. Some of the things we might see in Watch OS 8 include new tools for mental health. There's also been a leak that a developer has found about an app potentially called Mind. I don't know what this one is going to be, but it does bring to mind, pardon the pun, that it is going to be something to do with mental health, maybe some breathing exercises. And there was also talk a little while ago about using the sensors in the Apple Watch to give you an idea if potentially if you were having a panic attack, or to give you an idea of how stressed you were. This is going to be really interesting to see how Apple kind of pulls this thread with all the tools that are on board, including the blood oxygen readings and the pulse oximeter that we saw on the Series 6. I want to know, in terms of wearables, I know you're super passionate about the Apple Watch being better than Wear OS. We talked about this when we were on the live show for Google I/O. What do you think we're going to see in terms of developments from the Watch OS 8 platform?
Well, I mean, Apple has really refined Watch OS pretty well, and they're really leveraging a lot of the sensors to make it more and more of a medical device, which is very impressive because the competition is way behind in that. When you're talking about the idea of that Mind app, I really think that is something that they would spend a lot of time on, because it's one thing to go, okay, why do I need this device? Because again, it's another nicety to have a smart device, another device to have. You got your phone, you got your iPad, you got your MacBook. Do you really need another Apple product? But if it's actually helping you with your mental fitness, that's a really big deal. So they already have that stuff with breathing and giving you little reminders to get up and move. But if they actually have a method, a stress-free method to help you be stressless, that'd be impressive. But like if the watch is going to simply just buzz every time you're stressed, now you've caused a new stress machine. So I don't know if that's going to work. So they have to have this really, really intelligently designed. Otherwise, they've created a problem that they're trying to solve. So I would think they're going to really bank on not just the physical fitness, but mental fitness with this revision to Watch OS.
That's so funny you say that, because I absolutely had the same issue when I was testing the Fitbit Sense, which does use a sensor on it to actually detect the changes in sweat to determine if you are stressed or your body's response to stress. And it made me even more stressed because I saw on the watch that it said, you are stressed.
Exactly.
And I went, I know I'm stressed. Help me. And then it just said, do some breathing exercises.
Maybe this is like a chapstick thing where Apple will force you to use that stress tool, and then you have to pay to opt out of it. So like, hey, we're causing the stress, but we're going to solve it once you pay $199 more a month.
Lexi, I really want to
That's part of the services.
I wanted to jump in quickly and talk about blood sugar monitoring, and it might be something that might need new hardware, but Patrick, you talked about it in your curtain raiser video as well. Sort of, this would be such a game changer. I think the stress and the breathing is really cool, but the idea that you could monitor your blood sugar on your wrist without having to do a pinprick test, without having to have one of the wearable glucose monitors or one of the insulin pumps, I think that would be a game changer. Like, I have low blood sugar, and being able to just go like, oh yeah, okay, I'm about to spiral and crash, my watch is telling me. That would be so huge. I think this is something that maybe fewer people would use, but that's the one that I'm secretly, if they introduce that to an Apple Watch, I would buy it tomorrow. Absolutely, without a doubt. Stress is probably something, though, that far more people would use. But, I could tell you about why your blood sugar levels are linked to your stress levels, and we can do that offline afterwards. It'll be a really fun chat for you guys.
Oh, I'm stressed waiting for it now.
I know. Please send us the Medium post or the Zoom link at your convenience. So there's one more mystery element to today that we might see something on. So obviously Apple has tvOS that powers the Apple TV, but there has been a job listing for something that references Home OS. Now, this one is interesting because this is the first time we've seen Home OS as a name listed anywhere. Now, is this going to bring in maybe tvOS is going to become a part of it, HomeKit is going to be part of it to make a central hub for all your devices? Maybe there's something that's being worked on that we've seen leaked a little while ago or talked about from Bloomberg, which was a kind of a HomePod and FaceTime camera box. Does this sound appealing to anybody? I don't know what to think of this rumor.
Okay, I would speak up here. I would say first, I think if you go back to the source, which is that job posting, there's a big argument to be made that it could just be a copy and paste error because it mentions like all the other OSs. And then they deleted the word Home OS, which was mentioned twice in the posting, and replaced it with HomePod. So it could honestly be that simple of a mistake. But let's just pretend it's real. You have to wonder, how does that product look and how does it fit into the current lineup? Because you do have a hub that can do all those things. It's called an iPad. But I wonder if they would integrate something more like iPad mini-sized And then would it run iOS, or is this like its own thing, like you said, through like a tvOS? And I just like to add this last little wrinkle that we might actually see. Very rare that this could happen, but the tease of the images had like code on people's eyes and glasses and apps. And there was this persistent rumor of like AR glasses, but in order to have hardware, you need software to run it. So could there be a tease of ROS? So we have Home OS, which you saw in the job posting, and people are speculating that there could be Reality OS or ROS as well. What do you guys think?
I feel like we talk about Apple's augmented reality vision with these glasses, and many moons ago it was like 2021 or 2022 is the year, and now we're actually here. Are we ready to see it today? I love that thought process that you just had, Patrick, because I if it is as simple as there was just a little typo in the job ad, that would be kind of hilarious. But as I said, we've been talking about AR for a while. Ayaz, do you think that this is a possibility? We're going to hear more about this potential new realm of Apple glasses today?
I don't think we're going to see the glasses unless it's actually ready to hit the market. Apple is notorious when it comes to not showing off stuff unless it's ready. I mean, the iPhone was in development for many, many years before that showed up. Same thing with the iPad. They definitely don't want to show up with a half-baked product. And honestly, the original Apple Watch and its original Watch OS was a kind of a mess to the point that they had to revise the whole thing. I think with Apple's push into AR, which is very, very noticeable in its phones and iPads, developers are already getting a way to work with this kind of interface. Whether Apple has a device that's small enough and is power efficient enough that you can wear on your face and doesn't scream, "Oh my gosh, you look like a massive dork," that's the real thing. Because Apple doesn't want to have an uncool product. You saw the HomePods, not HomePods, the massive AirPods Pro. Not the Pro. What's the big ones? The big ones? Max? Is that what it is? I always mix these things up. But the massive ones, they got made fun of for the carrying case. Like they're really cautious about what things look like. So unless the product is ready, and I don't know how they could possibly shrink an M1 chip and have all the battery power and not it burn your face, I don't think we're going to see it today. But we might see more AR just in general.
Well, we'll hope, fingers crossed, and hope for the best. Now we are 1 minute out before the keynote is supposed to kick off. So I am going to say goodbye to our friend Patrick Holland, who is actually going to go and watch the keynote live and cover everything. So make sure you stay tuned to CNET.com. You'll see all of Patrick's stuff. Miss you, Patrick. Don't leave us, but I know you have to. Thank you.
So long,
I
buddy.
love this like mime act going on here.
Yeah, I don't know
No
what
actual
to do,
volume,
so.
just a dance. Bye, Patrick. Thanks for joining us. All right. As I mentioned, it is just before 10 a.m. Pacific or 1 p.m. Eastern. Apple's keynote for WWDC, Worldwide Developers Conference 2021, is about to kick off. We are not allowed to restream the keynote. So please go ahead and open another tab. You can go to Apple's YouTube channel. You can go to apple.com and watch the keynote live there. We will be talking and commentating throughout the entire thing. So when things get, a little bit boring, or maybe there's some talk that, is not that exciting, or a topic area that you're not that into, come back. We will have some jokes, some fun talk and everything like that to keep you company all the way throughout. And you can, of course, keep tweeting us on the CNET Live hashtag with your guesses for macOS and any other comments or questions that you have throughout the show. So I'm watching the Apple keynote right now, and it looks like it is kicking off. It's just started, so make sure please go across and open up the keynote in another tab. We'll still be here. Don't worry. You're not going to offend us if you just keep another tab open, but we're still here. So it looks like they're starting off with a developer kind of, I guess it's like a sizzle reel of developers talking about all their ideas for WWDC. And there's a curtain opening. I feel this is like I always love narrating these because there's now Tim Cook getting out of no, it's not Tim Cook. Someone getting out of a DeLorean or a flux
Yeah, this video is apparently Apple asked developers to come up with the video, and so that's what they're pitching. They pitched Tim Cook coming out of a DeLorean, and they had an actor. So now they're trying to show us more versions of the video that they could be showing us. What's the word?
This is cute. It's kind of like Yeah, you've seen a couple of like animation shows. I remember Bob's Burgers did something like this where they like crowdsourced, and Conan O'Brien during the lockdown did a crowdsourced show where it was like, if you were doing a version of this, what would it look like? Which is one, a way to get people involved, two, an easy way to do something during lockdown, and three, great way to outsource your video production. I mean, maybe we should be doing that. Get people to like impersonate us and sit in our different squares and boxes in this call. Or is that just going to end terribly? That would end terribly, wouldn't it? Yeah.
I mean, I think it would go well for the
first. The cartoon representations, yeah.
I think the clones would work well for a little bit, but then they would take over our positions. So then what would we do?
Yeah.
We would have to fill in for other people, right? So then it just keeps going until the very end. The last person has nowhere to go.
Hey, one thing we didn't talk about in the pre-show, and I want to get your bets on whether we'll see it today. Is the LeBron sneak peek beats that we saw. Do you think we'll see those today? Ayaz, you did a video on these, and you kind of you talked about all the little specs being revealed. As these, gosh, there's a lot happening in the stream right now of just random zazzy dancing. But what's your verdict on those beats?
Okay, so LeBron James, if you guys don't know, there was an Instagram posting by him actually, and it looks like he has a pair of unreleased Beats earbuds. They're not any Beats that you've seen before because they don't have the giant ear hooks. They are not AirPods because they don't have stems. It's very specific. Are we going to see that today? I'm going to say no. I think it would take away from Apple's general vibe with this because Beats is such a consumer-facing brand. And also how Apple's been handling Beats has been very strange because usually Apple buys a company and then eats it. You never hear from them again. This is a very unusual thing that Beats still exists. So I don't believe we'll see that today, but I bet it would show up pretty soon.
This is cute. They've got a whole bunch of little AR emojis in the crowd that Tim Cook is waving to. That's very sweet.
I did like the Craig Federighi and Tim Cook actors. They were doing a bit of a jam session, so I thought that was pretty good. It looks like Tim's on stage talking to the emojis. Oh,
so
how
cute.
Sweet. That is pretty cute. I have to say.
Do you think the emojis will be on for the whole show? Like, will they be cheering and whooping for like developments, or they're just for that open? Because if it's for the whole 2 hours or whatever long this is going to be, that would be a nightmare. You don't remember all the standing ovations that would happen in the old days and how long these would get padded?
And then we'd start to develop like a love for our different characters in the audience. Like, oh, I love Beanie Guy, and I love, I love that we can banter about this because normally the whole first 5-10 minutes of WWDC is just like, we've really brought people together. This is really about uniting the world with software. And it's, we normally don't see any kind of hard reveals until a couple of minutes in. So banter, banter, banter. Entrepreneur camps, there we go.
What's hilarious, as you were saying that, the language out of Tim Cook's mouth might as well have been what you just said. It was just like industry and togetherness. It's like, yeah, okay, that's wonderful. Prepare the coast.
It'd be interesting.
Tomorrow,
They're not talking about industry and togetherness and the huge court case that they had with Epic in the circuit court, or not the circuit court, the federal court. There's always like, what's been happening in the news? But let's not mention the awkward fights we've had with other companies. That's always interesting to see.
I want to see how a Memoji does a standing ovation, being a bodiless object.
They would just float up.
Just float in space further.
Kind of like the old. Remember the old Wii?
Oh yeah, the Me.
Yes, thank you. The Mii's, like when they bowled or something, they had no legs. They would just kind of float. So like, all right, I could see this.
That's true.
Unless Apple's big announcement today is like Memoji bodies. Maybe that's what's happening today. We're giving the option to have arms
the AR.
today.
That's the AR play. Memojis in your real space with bodies.
Oh, the man, the hair, the legend, Craig Federighi is on stage. I love to see it. I love to see it.
But they didn't. Okay, so the crazy transition wasn't a crazy transition so much as Federighi jumped out of a wall, like he came through the wall. Because I was thinking the last bunch of Apple keynotes, we've seen like these wacky transitions between scenes. Not so much this time.
Well, they're sort of playing around. Do you remember the first keynote? It was pretty basic and simple. Now we've got AR emojis, or emojis like actually in the audience, and these kinds of transitions. We are very much in the second year of the pandemic now.
They come up more creative ways.
All right. iOS 15, staying connected and finding focus, using intelligence and exploring the world. Now, I think
So one thing I
everybody's
will say,
lives going to be a little bit different in terms of timing. So if one of us is ahead of the other, then yeah, we'll just keep up to date. But yeah, Claire, sorry, you were
yeah,
saying?
no, I was just going to say, I've always watched on youtube.com/Apple, which has been quite behind, but I think I'm at the same point as you on my stream, and it's through the apple.com. So I've got that in one tab, and I've got us in another tab, and then I've got me in the real world
Yay.
tab.
It's the real world
way.
tab number 3. That's the
what you
third
call it.
dimension.
That's what you call your office. It's just the tab. There we go.
Yeah. So
right,
I'm interested to kind of see, yeah, how much is going to be like new and revelatory with iOS 15, because some of the big updates were announced early for last year's WW with iOS 14, but they kind of didn't roll out until sort of 6 months later. The privacy ones being a good example, but I want to know what we'll get like quickly and what's kind of rolling out, straight away. What we can start playing with,
now
essentially.
We're getting an update to FaceTime calls. Frederick is talking about how draining they can be, and they're introducing spatial audio. So it's more like you're in the same room. So you're not just getting all the audio like from a single source. In theory, if people are in a room, they would obviously their audio would be coming from different sides. I believe the AirPods and AirPods Pro, somebody correct me if I'm wrong in the YouTube chat, because I'm sure you will, that they do support spatial audio where you can hear where people are in a room or just audio around. So that actually would make it a little easier to handle some of these calls, because there is a huge mental drain. For those who don't know, if you ever feel like you're tired of all the Zoom calls, if it's more tired than normal, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, so spatial audio is supported on AirPods Pro, AirPods Max, and also now with the announcement of Apple Music with spatial audio support as well, which there actually is an announcement at 12 p.m. Pacific today. So it's not going to be part of this keynote, but there is going to be a little bit more information about that. So that's also something interesting to see, that this technology is coming to FaceTime. So obviously, yes, to be able to hear this, you'll need supported headphones that do have spatial audio support, which is the AirPods range. But, remember that kind of creepy, not creepy eye tracking feature of FaceTime that was announced as part of iOS 14 last year? I actually think that is pretty good and creepy, but good. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to try it out, but I have had comments of people saying, why are you looking at me? How are you doing this? And feeling like they were much more into it. Oh, and it looks like we're getting portrait mode finally. So this is
FaceTime calls.
Portrait mode in video. On FaceTime calls, yeah. So this means that potentially for the iPhone 13, maybe we'll get portrait mode video recording. This is something that Patrick and I have been speaking about for a very long time. So
yeah, that would be awesome.
In FaceTime? Yeah, this is interesting.
I'm really interested that they're talking. Oh, sorry, go, Lexi.
No, you continue. I was just saying it was going to use probably maybe the LiDAR sensor and the true depth camera on the front of the iPhone to achieve this.
I think it's really interesting that they're trying to make the experience of video calls. They've obviously recognized that that's been a huge thing this year. And while we'll probably get off our Zoom meetings and kind of relish the return to normal soonish, I do think that the convenience of the call, like the video call, isn't going away. And so they were talking about, the portrait mode, the spatial audio, also being able to schedule FaceTime calls. So that's really starting to eat into the Zoom meetings. You can schedule a Zoom link in your calendar, but FaceTime for me has always been like I'm just going to quickly FaceTime my mum. Now this sort of seems to be pitching it as a bit more of a still a social tool, but being able to use it in a meeting sense, or being able to kind of schedule them ahead of time. I mean, they use the movie night example, but that seems a really obvious way to take some of the things that have really worked with Zoom and kind of bring that over to the FaceTime ecosystem. So I think that's super interesting.
One of the huge things about scheduling, they also mentioned that you could take the calls in a browser. So if you use an Android device, if you're using a laptop that's not a Mac, you can use FaceTime. That's huge. That instead of it just being like Apple to Apple device, you can really use this for a lot more things, like you were talking about with Zoom. This is platform agnostic, which is enormously different than Apple in the past, because it was also mentioned during the whole Epic trial how Apple refused to allow iMessages outside of Apple devices because they wanted to keep people locked into those devices. this is really interesting because you could also have the idea that you're using an Android. You go, oh, this actually works really well. You might actually want to go the Apple way because it works well. I'm just kind of surprised and excited that cross-platform stuff from Apple. That's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, it's awesome
that's,
also
I think,
because
a big headline right there.
Yeah, finally, my parents and my in-laws will be saying, let's FaceTime you, when they actually mean a WhatsApp call or a Zoom call, and they'll actually be FaceTiming me on my Android phone now. So the ability to be able to move between platforms, I think that's something, yes, Apple's got a walled garden, yes, it works really well, but maybe it's a way of converting people if you can kind of bring a couple more people in. I mean, if we see that with the watch today, you know, we talked a little bit about whether the watch would come across and have kind of interoperability with other devices aside from an iPhone, kind of breaking out of that needing to be chained to an iPhone. That could be really cool. So Apple starts, I guess, converting a few more people. That could be a way to do it with, you know, features like this.
Yeah, this SharePlay technology, which is basically, you know, bringing music into the call, queuing up music playlists for people. It's an API, which is actually great. It looks like there's going to be a lot more features that potentially can come to it. You know, sharing your screen, doing things like playing music underneath the call or switching out to messages. This sounds really interesting. I think Zoom should be scared. Zoom should be really scared.
They've also added a lot of watch party style things with SharePlay. You can watch movies together. You can start watching on your phone and send the video over to your Apple TV. They're talking about partnerships with Disney Plus, Hulu, HBO Max, Twitch, TikTok, Paramount Plus. Like, so you can start watching stuff together. Instead of going, how do you do watch party in Disney Plus? How do I do it in Hulu? Is there any magic way? Apple is trying to make that experience different. That's always something that Apple has done really well. It's not so much about these revolutionary pieces of technology, although they've done that in the past. It's this improved lifestyle, because while we were all trapped and we wanted to watch a movie together, to do it was very difficult. Like, who's got what? How can we set this up? Do you have this service? Apple's trying to take the sting out of that.
That's a good idea because, yeah, I mean, I know I was starting to boogie the idea of starting to boogie. Am I like 70 years old? But yeah, I was starting to think of like the idea of being able to have watch parties, listen parties, you know, kind of making it a bit more social. I think that's the element that's been missing from the video calls this year. You know, a sense of fun, you know, that might be nice. It might be nice to bring back in. So, a fun trip down to Joshua Tree. Interesting.
Oh, you know, I think I misspoke. There wasn't actually a Joshua Tree. I don't know. I think there was a Mac OS a while ago that was the rumored name, and I don't think it actually ended up being the thing. So maybe I'm always get so confused with the rumored names and the actual names. Oh, it looks like you can quickly switch between a photo gallery view in Messages and scroll through photos rather than having long scrolls up and down of photos.
There was rumors of Apple adding more social networking elements into iMessages. Right now, looks like we're starting to see some of that, like when you're talking about the improved galleries that you can share with each other in iMessage. So as we discussed in the pre-show, Apple and Facebook obviously not getting along right now. They're not thrilled together. So Apple, famously really bad at the social network space, by the way. They've tried Ping. They've tried that weird music social network in Apple Music, but they shut down that too. So this would be a great way to get Apple's social network up and running, because iMessages has a really loyal following. So we're going to have to see what else they're going to keep adding to this, because I think it's going to get a lot more bolstered in features.
Yeah, that was the rumor before today, that iMessages was going to be really getting a lot of updates, and that would be one of the key standout features. So, I mean, yeah, photo sharing is a big part of iMessage, right? You know, what are we sharing when we're going onto that kind of platform and having everyone in the same ecosystem? So kind of smoothing that process out would be great. So yeah, looking at that, that's what we can see on screen right now. So the ability to kind of sync from multiple places, bringing images over to the library, and I guess, yeah, maybe trying to make iMessage a bit more user-friendly and bring over some of those WhatsApp-style features and bring that into the iMessage space. Would be, yeah, I think though iMessage is going to be, I don't know, maybe because I'm an Android user, iMessage I'd like to see kind of incorporate elements where it was not so insane to get an iMessage from someone if you're on Android. You know, if Lexi, you laughed at one of my texts the other day. You like did a reaction, and I just got a message on my phone that says, Lexi laughed at your message. Here's the entire body of the message. I was like, oh, I forget that I message things like that. There's just like little weird moments where it's not quite. I suppose that's the beauty of it. They want to have that amazing ecosystem and the amazing platform so that you say, well, you know, it's just not the same on Android. Maybe I should get an iPhone because all my friends have iPhones, you know?
Yeah, group chats with anybody who is on Android and then people who are on iOS, it's just a mess. As you said, those reactions just don't work. Anything, you know, some people who are on iMessage end up having their breakout threads, and then people are like excluded because they can't watch. Even video sharing and MMS sharing is messy too between Android and iOS, which you'd think wouldn't necessarily be an issue, but it still is. So it's good to see things are kind of coming a bit together, but I'm actually surprised so far that this has been a very consumer-facing intro to WWDC, rather than focusing on kind of developer showcases or, you know, more technical stuff way up the top. So notifications, I guess, is the next thing.
SharePlay, what they did mention the API there, so I'm sure that with SharePlay, where they have that ability for you to sync up things, they probably want a lot more people to make sure their apps are compliant with that. So that way, if you're going to share a video through, let's say, this is not a good example, like Instagram, like they could use the SharePlay API and you can do that. But like they have the massive partners already with Disney Plus and Twitch. But yeah, like Patrick right now is probably through the moon because it is the notification time, like Lex was mentioning. So it's supposed to be clearer, supposed to be a little easier. I would like to see this. I'm an Android guy. I think notifications are still annoying on both platforms. I also wish there was a clear all option. Apple, if you can hear me right now, clear all would be wonderful on an iOS device, which I don't know how that's not possible. But let's see what new things are coming up with notifications.
It looks interesting. They're going to be using... I know Claire's super excited, but don't die. Please don't die.
She's choked up.
I know. It looks like, so obviously it's going to use on-device recognition to work out how you interact with apps and sort of surface the notifications in order of priority, which is interesting to see because things like Siri suggestions are kind of like hit and miss. So to see if that actually is the useful stuff surfaced on top will be interesting. It looks like you can really force through some urgent messages if you have do not disturb or focus mode turns on. It looks like we're seeing big like blue iMessage bubble being shouted front and center. Please look at my message. I have an urgent request for, I don't know, whatever you need to have an urgent request for. Call me, pizza. Okay, so it's a do not disturb or a specific focus mode. I see what that is. This is really hard to watch and talk about it at the same time.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. It's interesting. They're talking about having focus, and we're splitting hours right now. We're trying to listen and talk at the same time. But yeah, I like the idea of a focus mode, especially like I know when I want to work, like there are certain apps that need to come through and certain apps that don't. So like I get like an update from Seamless. Like I don't need this when I'm trying to focus something, but if it's a text from my wife, that's way more important. The fact that DND can have those issues where you don't get the most important stuff versus getting like everything. So there needs to be a medium. And yes, I know you can allow certain apps to be, they can still notify you with D&D on, but I think Apple's trying to make it even simpler because again, it's about lifestyle. It's about enjoying your time, not necessarily like, which setting do I have to fix to make this happen?
Yeah, and it looks like it's going to have the same location-based suggestions. So like, oh, you get to the gym, do you want to turn on focus mode? It's similar to how the location-based, you can set the triggers for location-based do not disturb and actions that you can run through shortcuts. So it's interesting to see that's going to be similar with focus. Isn't and there the focus mode on Android? There is a focus mode too, isn't there?
I believe so, but I'm just saying, I wanted to say that in the focus mode, it syncs up on your devices. So if your watch is set to focus, your phone will do the same and your Mac will do the same. So you're not setting up a whole bunch of stuff. Again, Apple trying to get you into all of their stuff at once. So that's another nicety. If you are fully invested into Apple, you don't need to dig into settings per device. That makes it a lot easier to do what you want to do. In this case, focus.
I'm back, everyone. Sorry, I had a misguided sip of water that just went completely down the wrong way, and I almost died live on camera. So I'm here. I love all the stuff that you guys are saying. This is all awesome. I really like the idea of just modes for your phone. It's so simple because we have it on all the time. Basic idea.
They've added in the ability to scan whiteboards and take the text right off of it and send it in an email. These are features that I use other apps for. If they build it into the Apple camera, that's always a good thing. I will also say Apple's cameras are fantastic. And anytime they decide to integrate a technology, everyone seems to pay attention. You remember how popular QR codes got around the pandemic time for menus? They go, oh, if you have an iPhone, it's really easy. And if you had Android, they'd kind of just look at you sideways of like, do you want a paper menu? It's like, no, it's figure outable. But Apple, again, trying to add another feature to the camera.
It's interesting.
Love to see how well that works.
Hybrid Google Lens. So you can,
yes.
He was highlighting the phone number in the background of the image and then using the recognition to basically pinch in and call that particular phone number.
That's, I think, the secret and the future of AR right there. It's like not the ability to see like an octopus on your living room floor or whatever you might kind of experience on other AR platforms, but the ability to like walk down a street and see a shop front and just kind of say, yeah, okay, maybe I'd like to eat there later on today, recognize the storefront, bring up the menu, bring up the phone number, those kinds of features. So that'd be really cool and actually kind of usable rather than gimmicky.
Lex, I think you hit the nail on the head. This is turning into Google Lens. Like they're talking about being able to take a picture of something and know what a dog breed is or what flower that was. That's really unusual for Apple. And also the ability to translate text on the fly.
And there's a couple of languages that are supported, at least the native languages for live text, English, Chinese, French. There was a whole list. I think it was about 7 or so. So it's good to see that it's not just English that this is going to be available for. But I'm sure, so now using San Francisco as be able to sort of highlight some text in your photos as well. So the San Francisco is the example. You have a receipt, a handwritten note or something like that, and then you can basically look up those details on the fly. So it's not just a live image kind of augmented reality style. It can be post capture as well, and sharing locations within contacts and basically seeing, so this is sort of an overhaul of the contacts, it looks like, as well in the ways, because the contacts tab in iOS and the contacts app is very basic. So it looks like it's going to get a little bit more interesting and a bit more capable with that spotlight feature.
The YouTube chat is blowing up about, this is Google Lens. This is literally Google Lens. You copy and pasted Google Lens. So yeah, but if it works as effectively as Google Lens, that shows the power of Apple, because that is not easy to do all that, taking that data of an image and then using that to create other information. That's been notoriously difficult, even for Google, and they specialize in this. Whether Apple can really do this, we're gonna have to see how well it actually works, right? Because like it looks great in the demo, but how is it gonna perform in real life? It could be like a total joke, like eat up.
And we also
which
saw
is a very, very old joke.
We saw with iOS 14 with widgets, right? Everyone said Google's had this forever, which, yes, true, but also like it's kind of nice to see those features come to other platforms. Like if it works, there's a reason it works. There's a reason it's popular. That was always a kind of a bugbear for me with iPhone, that I couldn't kind of do that personalization and customization. Now I can. So, if there's, I guess it's not really, it's not really stealing, because these are just using kind of neural networks or machine learning or the ability to kind of take the smarts they have in other divisions and apply them to something consumer facing with photos, and then say to the devs, okay, do this, use this feature, use Spotlight, and kind of play around with it.
Or seeing a picture of the visual lookup that there's a breed of dog. I would love to be able to use that for people. Just randomly take photos of them. Like, who is this? No, don't do that. That's not a good idea. Although we've gotten a lot of California references with Joshua Tree and San Francisco. Do you think they're just playing with us with that Mac OS name? Like, here's Joshua Tree, like you were talking about before. Here's San Francisco. Here's the Golden Gate Bridge. Like
Golden Gate.
Yeah, they're just toying with us.
I do like this thing they're talking about now, which is using Apple Music to set music and beat transitions in photos. I don't know if either of you have used kind of if you take a lot of photos in iOS, it automatically, kind of like Google Photos, will create video moments for you from a montage of images set to really tacky songs. So the fact that you can now integrate music, of course, from Apple Music into those and search for particular tracks is useful, but it still won't beat the Google Photos. Okay, I don't know if either of you have taken a lot of photos of dogs or your dog on Google Photos, but it will automatically collate a video of your pet or your dog set to the most amazing barking music. It's literally dogs barking to a melody. It's really, really funny. And I don't think Apple Photos is going to match that. So
they used
someone
Imagine
spent a lot
Dragon.
of time in that feature. Yeah.
someone spent a lot of time taking photos of dogs.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
all
I think
know.
some of those are a bit hokey, those video compilations. You know, Google tells me I have a photo memory or a new video compilation, and I never really look at them. I don't know, it just sort of seems, you're right, I think the music is often a really big tacky part of it. That's interesting though, with Apple Music being brought in, if you want to share it, I guess, are there rights issues? Wow, I love taking fun, cool new features that everyone wants to share and then saying, what are the copyright implications? I think
Well,
that's
yeah, I mean,
really
if you try to put up
important.
a post, if you want to post it on, I guess, iMessage, its own social network, it's fine. If you post it on somewhere public, and you might have a problem because they used Imagine Dragons as their example. Now, I'm pretty sure if I decided to put up a music video with Imagine Dragons behind there and I didn't bother to ask permission, I might run into trouble, because that's also something, Claire, you might say you're bringing us down on it, but it's really important that if you want to be able to share your stuff and then it disappears because there's a copyright strike, that stinks. Like, you really want to be able to share these real things with real people. So if Apple hasn't figured a way to clear it to make sure it's all simple and your shared memories all disappear because everyone's being litigious, that would be really, really kind of a bummer.
But also, like, TikTok is teaching people that music is just shareable and takeable, and like you layer up and you kind of add, you augment, you change. You know, I could do a really interesting post-structuralist reading of the internet age, but like younger users are kind of saying, well, this is what I do on other platforms, so why can't I do it here? You know, so maybe it's a bit of borrowing again there. Like, how are people using their phones? How are they interacting?
And Apple also has a lot of leverage with
news.
its own music service. Go ahead. What's the big news?
That's true. Well, big news, you can now use your phone in actually basically put your house keys, your corporate office pass, and also your hotel keys in wallet. So you can use technically Apple Pay, your phone, to basically get into lots of different places. I know this is huge because I don't have to carry like an office pass when I go back to the office, or
You can scan your
hotel key
driver's
anymore.
license?
I can put it in. You can put a lot of stuff
interesting.
in wallet now.
So is it
Which is interesting. I
using
wonder if-
using RFID technology? Because a lot of those hotel cards and office passes are RFID. So maybe it's kind of, that's the kind of handshake happening behind the scenes.
I mean, Apple did discuss a way to have a digital
That
key.
mentioned, but
They had digital keys with
Sorry, you go ahead.
cars a while ago. So I don't know. Thanks, Lex. I wasn't sure if it's RFID, if they're using NFC, or if they're using a number of different protocols together to create that handshake. That's something that I'm sure the developers are going to dig into later today.
They also showed a
Compatibility
driver's
does use
license in there as well, which
UWB
is...
too.
Oh, sorry, go Lexi.
Oh, that's all right. The delay means we're all talking over each other. We're all so excited. No, so car key does use UWB or ultra wideband in the phone.
Thank you.
From like, there's certain cars that are coming out later in the year, like BMW and so on, that will have this car key. We're seeing it on the screen now. This car key technology. So it's going to be, this is sort of a bigger part of the UWB question, because when it was announced in the iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max, like 2 years ago now almost, it was kind of like this really cool technology, but there's no use case for it. So it looks like they're starting to, provide some more really interesting ways in which we can see this technology have really good use cases. But the weather app is getting an update, everybody. Like, big
Yeah, that's
news,
important.
because we all know the iOS weather app is rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. So now it looks better. That's my rant.
They bought Dark Sky. Remember Dark Sky, this amazing application that was
That's
available
right.
for Android and iOS. They killed the Android version, just despite us all, because I'm also an Android user. And then they kept Dark Sky for itself, and it was still its own independent app on iOS. I have it on I have an iOS device downstairs too. So like I test out devices all the time. So Dark Sky is beautiful and fantastic, and like Lexi was saying, rubbish is very kind. That's a kind description of the regular Apple weather app, which has been like the same since it was introduced since iOS 2, or iPhone OS, what it was called back then. So like it is astonishing that they haven't bothered to merge Dark Sky with weather until it looks like now. looks like we're sort of seeing some of that together, which makes a lot of sense. If you're going to take an app, you might as well make it yours.
I want to touch on something. They're talking about maps now and the improvement to maps. And we all remember when Apple Maps first came out and there was a lot of dissing it on how it compared to Google Maps. But just something briefly that we didn't touch on was the wallet featuring the ability to scan your driver's license and the ability to use it and have it TSA authorized. So that is going to be really interesting. There's a big move in the United States to bring out this feature called Real ID, which is kind of a verified driver's license that's safe for travel. I wonder whether this kind of technology, I mean, there's a lot of talk about vaccine passports right now and vaccine credentials. It probably wouldn't be brought in with that straight away, but, you know, digitizing your identification documents so you can just have them on your phone, super, super interesting. And would it be something that would roll out? I love Mark P's driver's license there. You know, I live in the state of goat. Like, what? That doesn't look like a real driver's license. But
mountain goat.
Yeah, I think it would be really interesting to see how this feature is used. And as more talk of kind of having vaccine credentials on your phone, is it something that we could see in future wallet updates? That would be interesting. But I just wanted to touch on that because I find it really interesting how those kind of features are rolling into just being on your phone.
Yeah, there's somebody in the chat room, Peter Sampson.
I did miss that TSA thing.
He's talking about how Apple's asking for your ID. Facebook never asked for my ID card. So Apple, which has done a lot of work trying to bank its reputation on privacy, this is something that is really important. It's one thing if you have your credit cards in there, which is already a bit, I won't say sketchy, it's a little bit fearful. Okay, my phone's got my credit cards in it. Can people just come by with an NFC device and pick it off? Now, Apple Wallet has been pretty much a success. I haven't heard any horror stories when it comes to people stealing credentials off of it. The layers and layers and layers of security that are going to be on wallets to protect this is important. They did say in the keynote that everything would be encrypted. I believe that the information, this is a guess, I didn't catch it during the show, but I would believe everything is on device and nothing is being sent back and forth. Unless it is, if it's going back and forth, it's got to be encrypted because there's no way on earth it's going to be passed from one machine to another without there being a layer of security.
Yeah, you talk about credit card details. You know, you can change your credit card, you can cancel your credit card, you can't change your date of birth. Very hard to change your name. You know, very hard to change your height. So some of that personally identifiable information, especially DOB, they don't want to be having any data breaches around that. So yeah, it's funny though saying, oh, Facebook never asks for my driver's license. You know, as someone who's just done a video on Facebook privacy and how to stop it tracking you online, hey, check out CNET highlights on our YouTube channel to see that video. I think what's interesting is the opt-in is always there for Apple. So it's saying, do you want to give us this? Do you want to put your driver's license on? Here is the information. Here is how it's being stored. The criticism of Facebook is it's not necessarily always making it obvious what information they collect. They might not ask for your driver's license, but they already know a lot about you from what you're doing online, from how you interact with your Facebook account. So it's kind of opt-in versus opt-out and kind of, you know, the information that we're directly taking from you versus the picture of you that we build up and we kind of glean from your behavior. So I guess that's an interesting comparison there. But, you know, it's always up to what you're personally comfortable with. Some people might not like the idea of having their cards on their phone, which is fair enough, completely.
It's AirPods
we just saw
time.
A bunch of Apple Maps updates, and it's AirPods time. I'm excited because I thought the spatial audio announcement was going to be part of this 12 p.m. briefing, but it looks like we're getting some information and updates now. And this is not the first time that Apple has updated the AirPods and given us new features like retroactively, because there's actually hardware in there that we didn't know existed. That happened when we saw spatial audio introduced with the gyroscopes and the accelerometers that no one knew were in the AirPods. Conversation boost. It sounds like you can hear more easily people talking to you. So accessibility is a huge push for Apple, and the AirPods actually do have a lot of existing tools that you can use to make audio improved. But this is interesting. I like this a lot. I'm looking forward to trying this out. This is exciting.
And it's something useful, not like a fun, you know, there's fun gimmicks, which we all love, but I think that ability to use the audio and make it an accessible feature is, that's what I love to see. Sorry, what were you going to say, Ayaz?
Oh, I was going to say that using the AirPods as a hearing aid device is a brilliant way to do it, because when you got something jammed in your ear already, so it's already harder to hear. But to have the microphones actually make it simpler to hear somebody in front of you, that makes, these nice earbuds something even better to have. Like you were saying, it's not just a whiz bang feature, like you were saying, Claire. It's something really useful.
And it looks like the Find My implementation has been improved, because it's been a little patchy. If you do lose like one AirPod or something, they have to kind of be out of the case and so on. So it now looks like they're going to be sending a secure beacon. So it's going to be leveraging that Find My network that we saw kind of revealed with the AirTag announcement. So potentially, if people pass by, you might be able to find them, even if they're not like located within Bluetooth range of your phone. So that's interesting too.
That could be a big game changer. Though what if you're like our colleague DVB, and on the day you get your AirPods, you drop one down a drain, like a stormwater drain, and you can see it, it's there. I mean, that's the other thing. That involves, I believe you stuck a piece of gum onto the end of a coat hanger and got it out that way. So, there is the high-tech solution of the Find My network, and then the gum and the coat hanger solution.
I think iOS 15 will have a feature that they actually show you an emoji pointing and laughing at you for losing the AirPod, and then they'll have a link to the Apple Store, how to buy another one. That may be that way. Although that's not true.
Love that.
But there is, I didn't mention the iOS stuff. They did mention new outfit options for emojis. They actually did make that a little slide. It was a little extra on this card next to us, right there.
Yeah, so we're seeing all the summary of
the is launching today. Which is for music, which is good, because we didn't really know exactly when we were going to see that launch. There was no date apart from June, so it looks like we can try that out today. Exciting. I do like, I'm a big fan of when AirPods get more features. I'm not going to lie. As someone who does use them a lot, this is actually really some useful stuff here, which I am happy to see. Oh, iPad OS. Who's laughing at me? Someone OS. Laughing at the fact that I use AirPods?
I'm laughing in the background because of the YouTube chat. Somebody said, "Why is everyone disappointed? What happened?" It's like the chat's very disappointed in the amount of stuff we've gotten so far. I'm not personally disappointed, but apparently this is a big letdown to a lot of the commenters in the YouTube chat, which is totally cool. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. These are just, like I said, iOS and like all of these things that Apple does at this point, they're really, really mature. So you're just going to get small revisions over time. So I don't know if we're going to see anything that's going to be like blow us away exciting. Like focus mode is not blow you away exciting, but in real life, it's going to be really useful.
Yeah, I agree.
iPad OS 15,
I'm excited. As people who are, I guess maybe people in the chat who are watching this, as power users, what are the features that you think were missing from this announcement, specifically around iOS 15? I think, there's a lot of stuff that, you're exactly to your point, Ayaz, that, it's not new in general, but it is new to Apple, and especially kind of branching out a little bit more cross-platform, I think is probably the biggest part of this iOS 15 and FaceTime update. But maybe people who are all in the Apple ecosystem and every single person they know is on iOS or Mac don't care about that. Maybe it's just people like us who are very cross-platform, with people all over the world using different ecosystems that value that. Yep. I'm just interested to hear your thoughts, so do let us know in the chat.
Yeah, you're right, Lexi. I think you test so many different devices, constantly moving between things, seeing what works, what doesn't. There are a lot of people that have just, when they see my Android phone, they're like, what is this device? Show me how your people work it. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are very happy just staying in the Apple world and love how much that all kind of connects together. So I'm interested in the perspective there. And we're seeing on screen now, iPad OS widgets. So Craig Federighi caught an iPad that fell from the sky. That was something I immediately seeing be gift again. This guy is just a walking gift machine. But yeah, he's talking about how you'll be able to personalize your iPad, which I think our colleague Scott Stein is probably very excited. Mr. iPad himself, he's always talking up great features. So yeah, the app library, the ability to kind of customize your home screen, customize how everything works, which is cool to see because it's some of those features have sort of been missing on iPad. And if you're going to make it a truly, I guess a functional device and multitasking, those kinds of things, that's what you really want to see. And it sort of starts to look a bit more, a bit more laptop-like, I guess, in that respect. So, setting up a home screen.
Although I am confused why it's taken a whole year to get the same app library as was on iOS 14 and organization to iPad. To me, that seems like a no-brainer that should have come to iPad OS shortly after iOS.
100% agree.
I feel like if I was an iPad owner, I'd be like, why am I waiting until now to get this? I should have had this last year.
Did you say if I was an iPad, Lexi?
Oh, did I say if I was an iPad? If I was an iPad, I would fall from the sky and Craig Federighi would catch me. How about that?
All right, so multitasking now.
Okay, multitasking.
Go, Aya, sorry.
Oh, yeah, so it shows Apple's focus. Why didn't the iPad get this right away? Because iPad is not their focus. They were trying to get, I believe, everything moved over to the M1. That's the real focus. Get the Macs in line with things. Getting the iPad Pro and an M1 is even more interesting. And then you have, like, you're getting the nice features back of, like, yes, you can put widgets on your home screen, which is ridiculous. It should have been an iPad OS a long time ago, but it's good that it's finally there. Getting some of the features from iPhone, being able to hide the screens. Like if you got a bunch of home screens with a bunch of apps, you can just turn them off. You don't need to have them up all the time, which is kind of like how your laptop works. You don't have all your apps up on your desktop because that's crazy. And right now, like they're talking about the multitasking. One of the weirdest thing about the iPad is that it's essentially a redefined PC, right? Everything is built from the ground up again of like, how do we do Windows? We don't do Windows. We do slide overs and we have these split screens. They don't actually just do flat out windows where you can have as much junk up as you want. iOS recently, I don't know when files came out, but actually having a file browser was unusual. So like with the M1 and the iPad Pro, I'm really curious if they're going to be showing more power in this. Yeah, it's nice you can have split apps and stuff, but what else can it do? There's an M1 in there. It's got like a monstrous like engine in there. And it's like, oh yeah, we can have two apps up at once. Like, yeah, that's not exciting. What else can you do with this?
And exactly. I feel like for people who have invested in the hardware to only now kind of get this software that's not showcasing the power of the M1 is a bit like, why did I spend so much money on this right now? And this is sort of the multitasking capabilities I'm getting, including the ability to have like the macOS dock. It looks like now called Shelf, which kind of shows your apps and stuff. It looks very much like the dock. Like coming closer together, but still very separate. This is a little bit of a confusing one for me, that Shelf feature. I don't know what to make of it yet. And the Notes app getting an update.
I wonder whether...
Again, why it took them so long.
I wonder whether, like, stuff like multitasking, it's hard to kind of see the sell of the grunt of the iPad because it feels like something that you're already doing on your laptop. And it's like, well, shouldn't it just do this? But I guess that's the kind of, we've all had the experience of an older laptop, or maybe I've got a really new Mac for work, but my MacBook Air, my personal laptop is really getting on now. And I spend most of my time on my work laptop, but then I go back to my old laptop and I see just how hard it is to have multiple programs open or lots of tabs up. So maybe it's like, it feels like it should be this seamless, but, that does take a lot of power under the hood. But I guess, is it going to be a selling point? Are people going to kind of say, like, this is enough for me? Or, when that's something that should just feel like it's already there.
It's
Apple showing off a
quick
feature
note
called...
feature.
Yep.
Yeah. Does this look like the Galaxy Note to you? Or does it just
Yeah, it's exactly what I was going to say.
Alarm bells. Like, it's exactly the Note line.
I have an iPad Pro. I have a Galaxy Note 20 Ultra, the fancy one. I was trying to figure out how do I write a note really quickly on this. You have to find an app, open it, write it, and then you put it away, which sounded ridiculous because like on a Galaxy Note, you just pull out the pen and then it's like, here, do you want to write a note? They're adding this now. So basically, the iPad is becoming one big Galaxy Note, which is weird, but kind of cool. I'm the weirdo who really loves a pen interface, even back in the old days. So like, it's one of those. Why wasn't this here before? Like, why you sold this pencil for $100?
The pencil is
exactly. It's $100.
This is crazy. I mean, because here's the thing with the rumors of the Galaxy Note potentially not existing beyond this year, and now it's like, oh, maybe people are going to be interested in it again because the iPad Pro now does this. I wonder if Samsung's going to second guess potentially.
Well, I think that the note story was that they wouldn't have a new one this year because of the chip shortage. The Samsung was essentially worried that they wouldn't be able to give the craziest amount of power to this device, because the Note's always like insane. Like, you can have tons of space, you can have tons of RAM, you can have everything you want in a portable device, and I think that's really neat. The rumor was that they would come out with one next year, so they would skip 1 year, which would be unusual. But then also, I think the rumors are of a foldable device. I don't know if we'll see anything about foldables here. That would be kind of funny, but this is really unusual that we're discussing Android stuff and Galaxy stuff and an Apple thing. So I can't wait to have the rage hit us in the chat. Because anytime we talk about Apple and Android, it's like, what are you doing? I don't do that, because I don't know who talks like that, but they do. And yes, thank you for noticing my AEW shirt, everybody.
I mean, to be fair, we are talking about that because right now we're talking about a Note app overhaul and a weather app overhaul for apps that have existed since the dawn of the iPhone and the iPad. So I think we can talk about, there's some interesting tweaks here, that the decisions to do this now rather than earlier is interesting. But Translate coming to the iPad, I didn't even know Translate wasn't on the iPad. That just goes to show how much I use my iPad, doesn't it?
Well, if you're using your iPad to translate stuff, are you holding it up like with the camera feature? Is that what you're talking about? Or you're like just
That's
in
true.
the actual...
No.
It seems a little ridiculous.
No, the actual just Translate app itself, yes. Okay, Swift Playgrounds. Hey, actually stuff for developers now. Fine, I feel like...
developing apps
we
on
had an
iPad.
API mention, and So
maybe it should be a bingo
1048
card of every
1048
time something that's dev-friendly is mentioned, instead of something consumer-facing. I suppose all these features,
I think so.
they want to sell it to consumers because they know how many of those people are watching, and then kind of have the devs kind of build up and build it from there. But yeah, it's it has been a very kind of consumer-focused event. Mm-hmm. But yeah, now they're talking about building apps on iPad, so that's very targeted.
Right. And yeah, again, surprised it took almost 50 minutes to get to this. I guess it does go to show that the breadth that the scope of WWDC is kind of changing, especially over the past year, which was, I guess Apple's big first event that was done virtually. And, it was the first free one. So pretty much anybody can attend, not necessarily only developers who have to fork over a lot of money for a ticket. But now it's open to everybody, and everybody is watching this, developers, consumers, and so on. So it does make sense that they're starting with this kind of, less dev stuff and now kind of leaning into that in the back end. But a lot of updates to products that, consumers are already owning, which I think is one of Apple's big strengths, is that not just abandoning kind of products in terms of the first year of the life cycle, like things like the AirPods, the AirPods Pro are now almost a year and a half old. The original AirPods and the AirPods 2, some of these features will be coming to those as well. The original AirPods was 2016 or 2017, I want to say. Someone can find the exact date or correct me, I'm sure, if I misspoke. But yeah, interesting to see that there's not leaving those products behind. But did we see anything about iOS 15 compatibility? I might have missed that because...
Oh, you mean like the list of phones it goes on to?
Yeah, the list of phones. So it's like
so.
If it's iPhone 7 and onwards, like people were speculating, or if the 6 and 6S might also be getting updated. I doubt it.
Someone was asking for 6S compatibility in the comments. They were saying, please bring it to the 6S.
Yeah, the 6S.
I don't have any power, but I'll ask them.
The 6 got cut off last year, and the iPad Air from 2013 got cut off last year. I know this because I had an iPad Air from 2013 or something like that. And you were right, Lex. It was 2016 that the AirPods came out, but it was December. So it was pretty close to the end there. So 2016 was when the original AirPods came out. Great, Frederici doing moves like he's preparing.
Now.
Yeah, they're talking about privacy.
We saw some pretty great acrobatics from Federici. I'm seeing a bit of stuff about privacy in mail, which maybe is a bit of a call out against Gmail, which, famously free service provided by Google, but, has had people raising concerns about privacy in the past. But what was interesting, they said, calling out that individual emails might have a kind of so-called invisible pixel that's tracking details about you. And that's interesting because Facebook's web tracking feature was called literally Pixel, wasn't it? So yeah, this is going to be a bit of a, here's what we're doing on privacy, and this is why we're better than everyone else.
Yeah, and this the whole preventing senders to see if you opened an email on the Mail app, that's going to have huge ramifications for newsletter companies and people that depend on kind of open rates and things like that. Imagine if you could just like peek, like almost what iOS used to do, like a peek and pop kind of thing. We had that 3D touch functionality. You could see those messages. I don't know if that actually activated to see if you like opened it or not, but interesting that now we're kind of seeing somewhat similar, that you can effectively block that the sender seeing if you've opened the email or not. That's going to have big ramifications later on down the track. A lot of people are probably panicking now who work for like email marketing and, and newsletter companies, being like, uh-oh.
Well, I mean, that's what happened with iOS 14.5 when Apple announced that they were bringing in those changes that meant you had to opt in to certain data tracking. Google changed like some major elements of how its ad tracking worked. So it feels like this can be an agenda setting move sometimes, where other companies and other players will start to say, well, if we want to keep the iPhone market or keep the iPad market, Apple market in general, we're going to have to change these features about our product. So yeah, it can be interesting how much they can kind of set the direction.
Right now, Apple's talking about Siri, and they're going to do on-device speech recognition. That's a really big deal, because instead of your information going from your device to the cloud and back, which also slows down things and obviously introduces elements of your data being taken in between the transmissions, with on-device processing, it's faster. That makes it a lot easier, and also your data isn't leaving your device, which is, again, Apple really digging into their privacy section right now. They also talked about an app privacy report. It's supposed to be really easy to see what sites are being pinged from different apps. So I'm really curious if the general public are going to really care about this. I mean, a lot of people use free services all the time, but are they going to notice that 900 sites have been pinged? Will that make them freak out? Or they go, oh, that's just normal? So I'm really curious how this is going to suss out.
And that, the on-device processing in regards to just doing basic tasks like device control. So they showed basically making requests without being online. So switching between apps, opening and starting timers, switching dark mode, and so on. It's going to be interesting to see how fast this actually is, because Siri in the past with those sorts of requests, and it hasn't always been able to do all of those, hasn't been particularly quick. So to see if that will improve speed by being entirely on device, and the devices that it does support is going to be intriguing to see. But it does remind me a lot. It looks like there's another challenge that needs to be done. It's going to be Google Assistant versus Siri again, to see which one is faster and which one actually gets it right.
I think you just set up a new video for yourself right there, Lex.
I know.
I'd watch it.
I'm kind of in the geek, though. I like doing that. I like doing that.
I'm going to watch that video, so do it.
So this is interesting. They're talking about being able to add contacts, recovery contacts and legacy contacts to your devices, so that if you forget your password or get locked out, you can have a friend or family member be your recovery contact. And digital legacy is something we don't really talk about, because it's not something many people want to think about, what happens to their devices after they die. But I mean, your phone is your everything right now. So what happens, for family members that might want to be able to access information, photos, those kinds of things. That's quite interesting. That's sort of part of the privacy piece as well, I guess, but all kind of iCloud based.
Right, and
we're getting a new version of iCloud.
All of those people will have to be iCloud users. iCloud Plus. Everything's plus.
What is this going to add?
Can they just reduce the price, please? Can they just reduce the price of the basic iCloud package and not make it up it from 5 gigabytes free to like 10? I'll take 10, like, please. Like, that 5 gigabyte free just goes immediately. Just
5 gigs in 2021. What is this? Like, I can't live with 5.
That's basically like 2 4K videos that I'd shoot. That's it.
Okay. they're explaining a feature of iCloud Plus called Private Relay. This sounds like almost a VPN. So that means that the data that you're sending out, the request you're sending out versus what's being sent out is going to be very encrypted. So this is interesting how they're essentially rebranding VPNs, because anytime I say those 3 letters, a lot of people's eyes just glaze over because it's like, what are you talking about, nerd? But the idea that your data isn't as traceable, that's a big deal. So you're not getting those targeted ads all the time when you're using something like this. This is iCloud Plus, a feature that's coming to, I guess, iCloud this year. And hide my email. This is fantastic. Yeah. You can just generate emails. Oh, that is really cool. That's a really cool feature. Huge. Especially so many sites, I'm not mentioning any names, but so many sites ask you to sign in to get more features. And it's like, so how about no? How about I can filter your emails? And also,
that's where the data breaches happen. Like, it's not necessarily the big companies. It's not necessarily a net banking or, a big company that has your email. It's probably more likely the discount coffee card that you sign up for online that's going to not quite have the tip-top security. So, yeah, being able to kind of generate a single-use email would be amazing. I think that's a great feature. I see that being really handy in day-to-day life.
I think this is an extension of Apple's sign-in process. Okay. Because, if you sign in with Apple, it does create you can have the selection to either hide your email or create or send the email to the developer or the sign-in platform. I always like to hide it, but it's now interesting to see you can make burner email addresses. So burner email apps probably going to be scared a little bit. But it is only with this iCloud Plus subscription. And there was a note about video does not count towards storage. I only just saw that line, so I need to do a little bit more digging into that, because if video doesn't count towards your storage, I'm all in, because that's what takes up all of my storage.
I think that was about security camera sets. This is some of that HomeKit video.
Oh, a security camera?
That was very...
Oh, okay. Thank you for that.
Because I think that makes way more sense why that wouldn't count towards this. But also, they did mention that the pricing is not changing on iCloud. So you're going to get these features, iCloud Plus, another syllable for me to mess up, at the same prices.
All right. So my dream is not coming true. Thank you for clarifying.
I'm here to crush your dreams.
So we're on to health now.
I know. Here to crush. That's your tagline. I, as actor, here to crush your dreams.
That's on my business card. It's true. If you see me,
it's LinkedIn bio right there.
I'll endorse you for that on LinkedIn. How's that?
I appreciate that. I'll set that up right after this keynote's over. But yeah, they are talking about health right now. They're showing off the Apple Watch. So hopefully we'll find out some more about watchOS as well with this.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I mean, it is interesting that there's a lot of research studies that Apple has been doing around heart health and cardiovascular studies. So it looks like this might be kind of giving us a preview of some of those studies, because they have been going on for a few years now. So let's take a look and see a little bit more about this. He's talking to a couple of cardiologists, it looks like, or now something about your vision into reality. I think this is a little sizzle about seeing some coding with iOS developers, about some tools that they can have maybe on the Apple Watch. This is the thing.
It's interesting how much the health stuff is. This health stuff has been such a, I guess we always thought about it before, but there's nothing like a global pandemic to make you really start wanting to know about your health. And I remember early on there was a lot of talk about pulse oximetry and those kinds of features to see whether you had high enough blood oxygen levels, or it's amazing how much the conversation has pivoted, and how we have this greater appreciation of health workers and the things they're doing, and how suddenly actually maybe I do want those features on my watch, maybe I want that information accessible straight away. But yeah, so I think this part now is just kind of sizzling us through, it's a sizzle to kind of show us health features and the stories that are kind of, building up out of people using the devices. The feel-good stuff, which we always see at these events, Joe and Jane really loved this feature.
And there's lots of stories about the Apple Watch, fall detection, ECG and so on, actually providing those critical pieces of information for people that actually ends up does save their lives. So 3 new features.
Well, as you say, like fall
this.
detection, let's talk about mobility and balance issues and gait impairments. So there we go. It's like you brought that on, Lexi. You're immediately leading us, beautifully segueing into the next topic of conversation on the health front.
Yeah, so I mean, fall detection has been present on the Apple Watch for a couple of years now, and so if it detects a fall and you remain motionless, it can call emergency services or an emergency contact or both. And it looks like the mobility metrics is improving. So mobility metrics has been, that kind of name has been included in the health app for a little while. And it looks like we're now seeing a little bit more in terms of a breadth of what it can do. So walking steadiness is the next one. And there was a metric, I'm trying to remember what it was called. I totally forget. I'm blanking on the medical name, but it is like a collation of all of these kind of metrics to kind of give an overall picture of your health. But this is specifically around mobility now. And that's double support time. I never remember that one. So a bunch of these metrics are going to be used to give you a more holistic picture of what's potentially going on. Yeah, so that heart movement and that heart study I mentioned has obviously collected a lot of this data. And it looks like we are now seeing some of the fruits of that now to see your walking steadiness. Is it okay or is it bad? I don't know.
Okay, so how many people are immediately, this is obviously designed for, for the health of maybe less mobile people, but am I cynical in imagining that people are immediately going to, go out for a night on the Terps and just try and test their walk steadiness score in their phone?
Oh, well, you probably know that would be happen. I reckon this is going to be aggregated though, so it's not necessarily going to take in like just one night on the town. Probably won't affect it too much. It will just be like your age between 20 and 35. You probably just had a big night, I reckon, rather than potentially something else going on. But I interrupted you. I'm sorry about that. What were you going to say?
Thanks for translating what a terp is. I was like, what does that mean? Night on a terp? Like, is that you said night on a town? I know what that means.
Terps. Not on the Terps.
I still don't know.
Yes.
Is that maybe that's a California saying? I don't know it. But
big night out on the drink. That's what it is.
They also showed that if you were having issues with walking and that Apple's noticed that your gait has changed or anything like that, they actually provide solutions. Like, here are strengthening exercises you can do to help you. So it's not just like, okay, this is bad. Good luck. It's actually, okay, there's something going on and you can actually do something about it. I feel like those solution-based things are much better than just simply notifying you that there's a problem. So this, I think, it's going to be something that's going to be really useful considering how long we are living with our devices. Like, if you're stuck on iPhone forever, like, you're going to be getting all of this data as you age, and you can find out how you're actually holding up over time because you have these tons and tons of sensors on you all the time with amazing processing power. Changes in technology moving forward, the amount of information and suggestions you can get over time has completely changed. I think Brian Cooley called this once thing, instead of getting like a snapshot of your life when you go to the doctor, you have this constant, all these meters on now. You can really see what's going on minute to minute. And that's a huge change in, like, how long has the iPhone been around? Since 2007? So this is a massive change for people living with these devices.
And what's interesting is that, like, a lot of doctors will tell you that if you do like spot readings in an office, a lot of people have, it's not necessarily indicative of an overall picture of your health. It's just representing that point in time. So if you have that aggregated data over a period of time, especially when you're not in the office, a doctor's office, which does cause a lot of people anxiety, then it is probably going to be a little bit more accurate. Again, interesting to talk about this in light of medical devices, because I don't know if anything, we've seen any indication of like FDA clearance for anything, because this is all based on the iPhone at the moment. And obviously, I think there's part of it to do with the Apple Watch. But I think there's a lot more threads to kind of pull out here. And also now we're seeing information about doctors being able to see a lot of this data on a portal of their own. So there's a lot to dive into. And this keynote is really fast. There's a lot to catch up on, a lot to kind of keep up with. It's just coming at us. I don't know how you're all feeling out there, but there's a lot going on. It's hard to interpret.
It's like when we were talking about one of the topics, and then it was like we just had a brief conversation on it, and then maps was done, and it's like, okay, we're on to the next thing. So this is moving quickly. There's a lot, and I think when you take out the applause from the crowds or people walking on and off stage, it just means that they can literally just edit down this presentation to be super fast. But now we're seeing carer alerts for families. So the idea that maybe if you're caring for an elderly relative, you could get updates on their health metrics, which is incredibly helpful, because someone who is maybe not in the best health, they're not necessarily going to be the person that's digging into all those quantified self metrics, that they're not going to be the person that's always switched on to what's happening on their iPhone. Maybe your elderly grandmother isn't, on her iPhone every day. So having a family member do that would be, that's a really basic but handy feature. So I like that.
I can imagine this also going the other way with like kids who are overly paranoid about the health of their parents. If it literally an alert, oh, your resting heart rate was a little high, mum. What did you do? Like, text message every single day. Like, I saw you what was this little raise of elevation? Or, so I think it kind of works both ways. But in terms of remote monitoring, I think there's a lot of great potential here. I can just see a lot of people becoming real hypochondriacs. Not necessarily the people that have potentially the issues. It's more like maybe the kids.
Yes, I think you're 100% right there. And I was just playing bingo. Don't worry. Like, I was a bit excited having a flutter on the horses. It's fine.
Okay, it's watch time. When you see Kevin Lynch, it's time to talk Apple Watch. He's that guy that sounds like he's very, very chill and calm. He's like the guy who won't take the last piece of birthday cake for himself. He just seems like that kind of dude. Like, Federico will buy you another cake. This guy's just like, no, you can have mine.
Federico will catch the cake from the sky and then present it to you.
Yeah, that's right. Now we've got the meme of falling iPad, falling cake. Yeah. All right.
So maybe we're going to hear about we've seen the Breathe app in the past, but now potentially, so an enhancement of the Breathe app to slow down and be mindful, which I think a lot of people are a lot more aware of their mental health this year and trying to stay sane. So this got a little bit of slack. No, that's not the right phrase. It copped a bit when this first came out, like, oh, you need your Apple Watch to remind you to breathe. But funnily enough, sometimes if you get that little alert to kind of tell you, oh, time to step and just get away from my desk, or time to just take a moment to slow down, very hard to kind of remind yourself to do that in the moment. So having a device that sort of tracks that and watches it for you, I don't think it's the dumbest thing. I was initially pretty cynical about that when it came out, but these kinds of devices, as anyone who's been in the midst of a really hectic day, having their partner come in and say, maybe just take a walk around the block, maybe your Apple Watch could do that for you now.
What's funny is Samsung, I believe, had the Breathe stuff for the... Oops, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just moving ahead to the sleep stuff, but you go talking about the Breathe app.
Oh, yeah. So, back to the breathing thing. Samsung's S4 was inspired by the breath or something like that. And everyone's like, this is the silliest, weird thing. This must be, maybe it doesn't translate to the US. Who's worried about this? What's going on? It's like, no, it's actually kind of important. Apple did introduce right now a new app called Reflect. It shows you like a little something to read, like think about someone you love and think about them or something like that. It said something as a note. So they have the Breathe app and now Reflect app. So if you want to just take a time out and just remember stuff and be grateful, it's not a bad thing. Will everybody use this all the time? I don't know, but it's not like it's gonna mess up. There's think about something you love to do and why it brings you joy, and then you have to hit the begin button. Okay, that's interesting.
I feel like
I don't think everyone's
going
to use this every day.
Update this one.
You got to trademark that. Although I think she's got her own trademark.
Yeah. All right, there's 2 new activity types. There's a Tai Chi workout and also a new Pilates workout for more core-based stuff, it looks like. And now Fitness Plus, which is that service that kind of you can get free with the Apple Watch, and then it's a subscription. I think $10 a month after that. Got some new workouts coming. Strength-based training, high impact, and I never get what HIIT is. I can never say it, but it's getting more
intensity
HIIT
interval
workouts
training
too. That's the one.
High intensity
Thank you.
interval training. I got this.
And I like the idea of
new playlists. Okay.
Yeah, I like the idea of being able to. I mean, I am already rocking out to Lady Gaga when I'm exercising, so bringing me some specific playlists that I can kind of, jam out to. I think everyone realized just how much it's important to when you're self-guiding exercise. The last year was huge for that. I stopped going to the gym and suddenly had to become my own personal trainer. Turns out I'm not great at it, guys. I need Lady Gaga as my motivation. Thank goodness for Chromatica. Otherwise, I just don't know that I would have left the house this year, done any form of exercise. So, that's interesting. Maybe kind of being a bit more, they've kind of seen the popularity of Peloton and, those guided workouts and the kind of workout, self-guided workouts as a whole like genre now, a genre of content. So, it's cool to see those features come through.
Probably the biggest reveal of the watch stuff so far is that the Photos app is the most used watch face. I did not expect that. I did not expect that at all. I'm a big fan of the Animoji and Memoji watch faces personally. Just like looking at the dinosaur. But the interesting part here is that you can now use portrait mode photos taken on the iPhone, and it's going to be able to use basically segmentation processes to make the subject stand out. This is intriguing, to actually change the position and make that subject pop, so you have that blurred background effect and your subject can kind of be a bit more front and center. She's showing a demo right now. And then sharing watch faces is something that we saw on Watch OS 7. So they're just showcasing that ability to be able to share them with, other contacts now. I don't share watch faces at all. I don't think anyone needs to see my watch face, or maybe no one cares. Maybe that's just an indication of my friends don't care about my watch OS faces.
I care about your watch OS face,
is,
Lexi.
thanks, Claire.
Face,
Thanks, Claire.
Every aspect. But yeah, who's doing the sharing? Not entirely sure. It seems like a specific use case, but hey, if that's you, then you now have that great little feature to use.
We were just seeing the watch faces with the portraits on it, and one of the nicer things is it's not like the clock, the actual time is slapped on randomly on somebody's face. If we put up that picture again, you can see that the clock is actually like behind some of the subjects. It's actually integrated better into the pictures. If you just take a look, like even the top left there, you can see that the person's baseball cap or its head, I can't really see, but it's kind of blocking the time a little bit. So it's not like your beautiful photos are getting ruined with a giant clock slapped on it. They're trying to integrate that, which makes it a little bit nicer to look at. It's a small detail, but like
you're right.
That
I hadn't noticed that, Bias.
I think it's just
That's
really nice.
Super
like
cool.
It's like a magazine. Back in the day,
It
magazines
does.
were
It looks
like
when Vanity Fair's covering up the logo of the actual masthead. That's very nifty, but obviously using the processing in the background that's happening, that's kind of creating that foreground and background and kind of slipping the time in between. That's like maybe my favorite feature of today. I am easily swayed by it.
We're going to the home. It's home time.
Also, can I just say multiple timers on Watch OS? Like what took them so long?
Was that not a thing?
Multiple timers is big. No. As far as I'm aware, I've never been able to do it. Well, there we go. Okay, home, here we go. Here we go. Craig's
just
back.
interesting while he's
Air Force One.
Yeah, while Air Force One, while the Fed talks about all this, I just think it's interesting some of those features that are coming onto the Apple Watch, kind of bringing the watch away from the dependency on the phone. That's interesting to see, kind of being able to text, contacts, bringing a lot of that onto the device, so you don't have to have it being a kind of a Pepper's ghost of your phone. Weird reference, but sure.
Let's go with that. I like it.
I like that. I like it. Roll with it. You could send that to Apple marketing right now.
Yeah, I should. So Home OS,
really...
talking about getting in, unlocking your door. Okay, are we going to see a HomePod with a screen? That's the question. Probably not.
Okay,
I think, yeah.
Something I've always wanted to see from HomePod is actually happening right now. You can actually ask the HomePod Mini to play something on the Apple TV. I have no idea why this wasn't a possibility before. It seems like if you have all these devices that talk to each other, why didn't this happen before? But don't get excited yet, because it won't be out till the fall. So if you bother to pay $150 for your Apple TV and like $100 for a HomePod, they can't talk to each other until the fall for whatever reason. To totally
Unless
work
you
together.
get the developer versions of the OS, right?
I
Potentially.
guess.
If you want to put the developer options of everything on. But then, you proceed with your own risk. Okay, so it looks like they're showing being able to watch and basically sync at the same time. So the punchline of the show drops at the same time because we all sit and watch Ted Lasso and wait for the punchline.
Well, we've all done that thing when we're sitting on an aeroplane. When you're sitting on an airplane and you time the start of your movie with the person sitting next to you, with your friend sitting next to you. I don't know if we've all done that thing, but maybe I'm just a big loser. But timing it so you're not laughing inappropriately at the slightly wrong time. You got to do that. You got to whip smart that writing on Ted Lasso. So you got to make sure that you're capitalizing on that punchline timing. I support it.
Now, Ted Lasso is a show on Apple TV Plus, which is available on everything these days, by the way. So if you have an Android TV, it just came out last week. So Android TV has Apple TV Plus at this point. If for some reason you want to do both. I have not seen it yet. I have an Apple TV. I think I even have a subscription because I bought something, and I have never seen an Apple TV show. Are they good?
I'll give you the lowdown. You should probably watch the morning show, and you should probably watch Ted Lasso to keep up to date. Everything else is probably a bit of a pass unless you're particularly into the subject area. Those are kind of the things that I've watched. They're decent. Everyone loves Ted Lasso. I'd say it gets much better. Yeah. I didn't like it at the start, but now I do. But now the HomePod Mini can actually play audio and sync with your Apple TV. So this is also big news too.
That's nifty.
Like why before why this wasn't a thing?
Yeah, personalized playlists.
Yeah. And also
bringing
that
Siri
for all of you.
Bringing Siri to third-party devices. Now that's new.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's a good thing or
big
bad
message
thing.
to the devs, and yeah.
It's like, okay.
I mean,
it looks like it was talking to an Echo Bee. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying the Siri's functionality has been very, very limited compared to other assistants, and wanted to see. This is again, I'm curious to see if developers are going to be interested in this, given it doesn't do all that much, or it doesn't have the capabilities of some other assistants. I interrupted you. My apologies. Ayaz, continue.
Yeah, so they're talking about Matter right now, which I believe is a consortium between, I want to say, Google, Samsung, Apple, Amazon. Or maybe Samsung might not be in that, but like it's the big ones. They're all together. That way devices work a lot more seamlessly together. They're discussing that Matter is going to be a part of iOS 15. So that means that you're going to have improvements when it comes to talking to your devices through Siri. So that's a big thing. One of the things, like Lex was mentioning, Siri is behind a lot compared to Amazon's assistant, I'm not going to say the name, or Google's assistant, because it doesn't work with as much stuff. So HomeKit's kind of behind too. So once this thing is working together, Siri's going to get a lot smarter faster because they're basically in the same league with Amazon and Google.
Yeah, when you start to bring Siri to more devices, it's like it's not really doing much now because it's pretty walled into one kind of space. But if you can have it on third-party devices, then suddenly people are interacting with Siri more and more. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing they're sort of taking the learnings from that, and devs being able to roll it out into different kind of ecosystems. That's kind of interesting. But yeah, I've sort of my experience with Siri is a lot of people say, "No, I didn't mean to say your name. I said Sirius from the Harry Potter movies." Yeah. Jeez.
Oh, and there is now package detection. It looks like Apple Car. No.
It was just...
I saw.
I mean, it could. What is this, old MG or something? I can't tell what the code. Nice.
Yeah, if we were talking about a really fast-moving event, we are onto Mac OS now.
So last time to bet on the names. I see Santa Rosa.
Oh, okay.
You got Joshua Tree. Lex, did you have your pick on the names?
I think I liked either Mariposa or Monterey. I think those were the ones
Monterey, I
that
think, is a
was
good
I'm
contender.
Monterey
just being
sounds nice.
boring and going with the ones that well, it is nice. I'm going with the ones that they kind of supposedly did register as trademarks or names. So I'm not being particularly creative.
Oh, here we go. Here comes the
So I'm
announcement.
just going
What
with
should
it.
call it?
Let's go. Come on, Monterey Aquarium. If it was called
okay, so
Monterey
maybe
Bay
that's-
Aquarium, I'd be pretty happy.
It's that hokey thing where they have the photos of what activity they did to find the name.
Monterey.
Annual vision. I wonder if
It's
it's actually
Monterey.
a person in Apple
Oh, that's
marketing.
official. I'm behind.
It
Okay.
is Monterey? Okay, I'm behind
Monterey.
too. Okay,
It's Monterey
good.
Jack.
This
Just-
is the
it's-
first
it's-
time I've been at the front of the stream that I've had the
Congrats.
fastest. This is
Claire.
I'm always
Take the lead.
5 minutes behind.
It's all
Guys,
on
have
your,
you seen
yeah,
those
okay,
health
Claire,
features
it's
on
all
the
you.
watch?
Ayaz and I are going to tune
Yes,
out now. You got this, Claire.
I got it. All right. Here's everything I'm saying. I'm in the future, everyone. So I can tell you the following features are coming to macOS Monterey. They're talking a lot about photos here, iMessages coming to you. I'm trying to read and talk at the same time, and that is a skill that I didn't necessarily develop in school. Okay.
They discuss share plays coming to Mac OS as well. So if you want to be able to have watch parties from your device, you can do that. Or your Mac, you can do that. They discuss the focus mode. That's also, like I mentioned before, is cross device. So if you want to focus on your iPhone, it'll tell Mac OS and vice versa. So that's really cool. I am not in the future.
Okay.
I'm just slightly behind.
So what they're talking about now is a feature called continuity, because they're saying that the Mac, the iPad, the iPhone are all powerful devices, but you need to be able to have them connect with greater speed and precision. And it's a feature called universal control. We can use a single mouse to move between devices, a single mouse and keyboard. So that's a kind of a cool concept. So your mouse can move from your Mac screen and then swipe over to your iPad, I guess, as a secondary display or a secondary device, bringing those two closer together.
So that means
But
I don't
still
need
not
a
the
fancy schmancy, super expensive Apple Smart cover, whatever the heck it's called, that floats the iPad. I can just use the janky one I have if it's got universal control on it. That's interesting.
That's
this is
cool. So
hilarious.
moving it across and the cursor's on the iPad from the Mac.
It's like a
So
virtual
this is just setting up
VKM.
a second. Yeah, exactly. I'm
It's so
hoping
funny,
there's
like-
going to be a meme that comes out of this somewhere.
There was so many nerdy tools I used to use to do this. Like if I wanted to have one mouse and keyboard on different machines, you'd have to install a virtual VKM, I think it was called. And it was a virtual keyboard monitor, keyboard and mouse, that is. And now it's like Apple's like, we're just going to put this in. This is like a super nerdy thing. I don't know how many people are going to use it, but like it's actually oddly, I'm enjoying this because like this is this type of stuff I would do to make my devices work together. Now they're like, yeah, you know what, this is going to work together. We're just going to fix it for you. Like, all right, sounds great.
Well, having that kind of handshake happen seamlessly in the background so you don't have to think about it is that's a kind of feature. I'm now I flew too close to the sun. I started buffering.
It works.
But
with
yeah,
more
now
than
he's
two
got 3
devices.
devices. And
How did Craig Federighi get so many Macs and iPads together? Impossible. It's like he's connected or something.
being able to drag and drop files between devices, I don't know, like that's something so seamless. As someone who's got 1,400 devices and I'm like taking a photo on my phone, need to send it to someone really quickly and just, yeah, being able to move seamlessly like that.
It's similar to like what movies show technology to be. Like, just send that to my screen. Just flick it over there. This is the kind of thing that people wanted to do, and you've seen it in sci-fi. This is what Apple's actually doing. They're like, okay, if you have all Apple devices, it's pretty easy to move these things around. I am very, very curious one day if this will lead us to go like, let's just open that app on my iPad, because they are running the same processor, and that's just a pipe dream at some point. But I could see that happening at some point because they're all essentially running the same hardware. At one point, this will all be in that world where they all run the same stuff. So maybe more apps that could be shared and more files, and it's basically every device becomes your device, which is
Yeah.
a utopia, a future that I'm looking forward to.
Well, Brian, who's running this
just a
stream
preview
for
of,
us today behind the scenes, he described it as Iron Man technology. So the ability to just like,
Yes.
it's like, why can I not do that? If they're all in the same
Yeah,
family,
we
just
don't
let
care about
me
the flying suit.
floof it over.
The flying suit doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just like, can I get the app over there? That's what, like, that's the future we want. I don't need rocket boots. I need to be able to move files by going, put that over there.
Yeah. The fanciest thing about Iron Man was when Pepper Potts was walking around on what was clearly a cold night with no shoes. And I was like, man, they've got that like underfloor heating in their house. They're so fancy. Iron Man is the richest. Wow. So universal control, back to Apple, not my wish list from the Iron Man films. Yeah, I think this is a pretty easy sell, but maybe it needed that bedrock of all the work that Apple was doing to kind of bring, Mac OS closer to iPad OS, closer to iOS, those ecosystems to be able to talk to each other. It sort of seems simple on the front, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes. So now that those things are more aligned, we can get these kinds of features like universal control. And we're talking peak productivity and automation. So
yeah, shortcuts coming to Mac OS.
Shortcuts.
Now, Mac OS has had Apple Script Automator in the past. They've always had these things that were really kind of nerdy if you wanted to have things automated on your behalf. Like if you wanted to set an Apple script to go off to open a browser at a certain time using iCal, you could do that in the Mac. Shortcuts is on iOS already. It's supposed to be an easier way, a more graphical way to make these happen. Automated was something in the middle, a little bit more these little plug-in things you'd move around instead of it being all text-based like Apple Script. Creating these automations and having them on a Mac, it's interesting. Apple always try this. I don't think it's ever really succeeded. I don't know anybody who's like, I'm a big Apple Script person. I love using Automator. Those are like really, I hit my mic. Really, really niche kind of activities. I'm really curious if shortcuts, because it's from iOS, bring it to Mac OS, is that going to bring it into the mainstream? Or are we going to see tons and tons of interest in this? Or is this one of those things of like, yeah, it's just there. Like, we don't use it.
Well, how many people on iOS do use shortcuts who are general users, not power users who are dedicated to automation? But I think I've used shortcuts probably 3 times, and that was just to showcase how to do something. And then after that, I haven't needed to use it before, and it's not as intuitive as one might think. It's much better than, say, scripting something yourself, but I don't think that for most users, I'd say 90 to 95% of users probably never even touch the Shortcuts app. They've probably never even downloaded it on iOS. Mac users, though, are different. So I think that it makes more sense for it to exist on Mac, especially because now you can import those automators into Shortcuts as well, as Craig was just saying there. So again, curious to see actually who actually is going to use this. I don't know if I would.
Now we're talking
again,
about
Safari.
Yeah, I can't say I've been a huge user of it. I'm just interested that they're talking about Safari now and talking about power efficiency and privacy. So I know that's sometimes a complaint about Chrome, that if you've got loads of tabs open, it starts to go slightly haywire. So they're saying that, it's going to be a better experience in that respect, and also just a more private experience. So, all right, they're saying this is like, yeah, go.
There's a new design. There's a new design for Safari. It's a little bit cleaner. They've also introduced tab groups, which just was added to Chrome. You could probably get those as extensions before. It's supposed to make it a little bit cleaner. The groups they remain in like a closed drawer on the left. You can open it up and have it. The idea is to keep it uncluttered, which is really important when you have a ton of projects going. I know anytime I'm researching something, I end up with like hundreds of tabs. So like, I don't use Safari other than on iOS devices. I don't really use it on Macs. I don't use it for that kind of thing. But I mean, if they make a better browser, they make a better browser. So let's see how it does.
And just little graphical things like the tab taking on the colors of the page that you're looking at. Yeah, it is
seamless.
Interesting though. I mean, I have played around with grouping on Chrome, as you mentioned, IAS, and I just like the chaos too much, Like, I think it's great to have these options of folders, but it's just a way to hide the chaos. And so I'll never actually open and then close those tabs. At least if there's like 100 open and it's all visually cluttered, my OCD will get to me. So I'll be like, I have to close these because I have to finish consuming the content or take what I need and close it, because otherwise it looks way too cluttered. But I think tab groups will be very useful for most people. Probably not me, because I like the chaos. What can I say?
You embrace the chaos. I love it. I love this, true chaotic evil life that you're living in this world. But yeah, like it's just like a little feature. I don't know if it's enough, but it's like not enough, but it's just kind of a simple update, but it could be something that is an absolute game changer in terms of productivity. But it's interesting though that these little features all get their own like really special moment, and you're like, that's something I will use. Oh no, I'm not going to use that at all. But that is, I suppose, WWDC. It's just all these kind of disparate things coming together, and then you go, hold on, the Apple Watch face puts your photo in front of the time? That's huge. Whereas I'm like, tab groups, yeah, give me every tab is a sliver so I can't even see the logo anymore. And just like it's a memory of which one's where, you know, that's the kind of true power move, I think.
The Safari is actually coming to iOS and iPadOS. So we're going to have tab groups on those devices as well. They're also syncing up. So if you have the tab open on one, it'll show up on the other device. Now that is another one of those things we're talking about, just the complete ease of use. You're talking about, you got 3 different devices. It's really easy to lose some, like where did I open that? Did I open it on my laptop or this other thing? This makes it a little easier. And yes, other devices and other browsers do have syncing abilities, so I'm not like completely going to get raked over the coals on this one. I know that's a thing, but Apple's building it into their default browser.
And the ability to have those on mobile, the tab experience is going to be different. So it is going to be very much catered to one-handed use. So the tabs are going to appear on the bottom rather than necessarily having to go to that multi-tab switch view in Safari or turning your phone landscape to kind of see all your pages. It's now just going to be like a quick swipe through, kind of like how you would flick through apps on iOS. It's going to be similar with tabs in Safari. Yeah, that's useful, you know, for, you know, lazy
extensions
readers like me.
are coming to extensions are coming to iPad and iOS. So if you have like, I don't know, an ad blocker, it actually would go to Safari. It would go there like that. There's extensions for native Safari now, and in iOS and iPadOS. That is a big
think
deal.
about it. The example they used was Honey, which is one of those shopping coupon code extensions. You know, how many times you're sitting on your laptop shopping versus how many times you're just sitting on the sofa using your phone and just like shopping when you should be watching your TV show. Or Grammarly was an example where, you know, if you're typing something out on your phone. So having that on iPadOS and iOS that's really nifty. I'm about that.
And AirPlay to Mac. So if you wanted to send something from your phone to your actual laptop or an iMac, you could use that as another display. There are third-party apps for that, so they're going to probably be very irritated that Apple's built it in, but that's what Apple does sometimes. They take some great features and they bake it into their own operating systems. And there's the cameo from Ted Lasso. Fantastic.
The second cameo, I think. So it basically feels like Safari is now Chrome.
Yes.
I mean, I'm all right with that, to be honest.
So Apple's basically doing it. They're doing everything that Google did. So they got Google Lens. They have Chrome now. What else do we have? We have the ability to use speakers, I believe, as I think that works with Android TV. I got to double check that. Don't quote me on that. Also, somebody's very angry outside my apartment, by the way. So if you're hearing like honking from a truck, it's coming from me. Well, my
Well, the last live event we did, I had someone actively drilling into the road directly under my window. So I'm just so glad it's mildly quieter today. Joy of it. We're getting a big talk on the head of Worldwide Developer Resources. I think that's what WWDR stands for, to talk about the nuts and bolts of the D in DC developers. So APIs for SharePlay. Okay, so kind of talking up some of the stuff we've seen today. Yeah, sorry, go Lex.
So just quickly, while we're talking about developer stuff that probably is to us, we'll keep an eye on it. But going back to what Ayaz was talking about in terms of things that Google already has, we've seen the notation interface that is or bringing up Google Notes, the Notes app in iPadOS with the Apple Pencil, being able to notate with your voice or a scribble hang on, what was that? That was WatchOS, I think, as well.
That was watch.
Yeah, just interesting to see kind of interesting to see the interplay, the sharing that's going on. But the biggest one is yes, Safari is now Chrome, and Google Lens is now in iOS, but not called
iOS
Google
camera.
Lens, it's Apple made.
Yeah.
iOS camera, exactly.
Object capture.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, object capture.
So
this
it's
allows you
kind
to
of
use
capturing a bunch of images sort of three-dimensionally around an object and kind of creating a sort of
virtual
digital
model.
version of the object. Yeah, virtual model.
Yeah, that's really neat. This is obviously going to tie into Apple's AR plans over time. If it's this simple to create objects that can be seen in AR, like I believe you can do this with Amazon already, where you can place an object in your living room, how it's supposed to look. That's intriguing because you can, if you're a smaller company, let's say you're not Amazon or you're an Etsy person, you're like, okay, I've made this, I shot this awesome sneaker I've made myself, I've customized these sneakers. I can shoot it in 3D and you can see what they look like. Or I could do portraits or any other thing. Portrait's not a good example. Any other 3D object, like a sculpture. So like that's kind of a neat idea that this opens it up to a lot more people. If you're a small business, you could probably really enjoy using these tools, assuming that there's a bunch of camera apps that can help you put this together. And there you have the example of a sneaker. Just taking a bunch of photos of a sneaker, you can have a 3D model without having to know how to do 3D modeling. That kind of democratizes 3D modeling.
Yeah,
And
you're right. I
especially
think
for
Etsy is a great example there, Ayaz. You know, people being able to go up against because IKEA is an example of, you know, that had the AR shopping experience so you can see what an object looks like in your space. I think they mentioned Wayfair, the furniture brand there, or the kind of homewares retailer. So yeah, being able to kind of see something in your space now becomes a lot simpler if you're not one of those companies that has an entire division working on that for you. So I think that'd be cool if you could start to be like a small business and roll that out. That'd be awesome.
I have to say, this is something like, as someone who's currently redecorating my space, I wish that I could have this available to me to be able to place objects from retailers. I'm thinking of buying and seeing it in three-dimensional space through augmented reality. I want this feature kind of yesterday, so I don't end up having to buy and then return a lot of things just because they don't appear like to scale or in the right ways that I'm thinking of in the house. So I think this is a really interesting feature. And yeah, as you say, smaller retailers, I think, really could potentially benefit from this because you won't have to have the ability to do studio photos of all of your goods and services. Well, not services, but goods that you're trying to sell. So this will be a big boon, I think, for
Lexi, you're speaking my language. I'm
sure
trying to find a rug that matches my like hideously over the top palm print rattan furniture that I got. And I just want someone to give me a way to like take internet rug and put on floor and see what it looks like, because I just wander around with a tiny picture on my phone, like holding it up next to the couch being like, is this even gonna work? So that's the AR that I want in my life. As I say, I don't need an octopus on the floor. No one needs an octopus on the floor, but I really would like a rug on my floor that I can see what it looks like. Bring me that, developers. $50 for the first person who can do it.
I think
Is
like
the
you could try
octopus reference
Amazon.
to the Google Lens thing? I think it is.
I think it is. I've seen an ad recently. I've got octopuses
Yeah.
on the brain, so something's going on there. But I don't need an octopus on my floor. That's the main message on a WWDC this year.
I have used that Amazon AR feature. I was buying an ottoman and I didn't pay attention to the dimensions, but once I did it in AR, I realized it was way more massive than I thought. I'm like, oh, I missed something in the description. That's a huge difference. So that actually helped me not buy this massive thing. So AR is already used in Amazon. So you should try that out for your rug. Maybe the rug will have a picture of an octopus on it. You ever think about that? Maybe that's what you need.
Oh,
It's fighting a palm
changer.
tree. It's like a whole
Rug
scene. There's a palm
inception.
tree and there's a fight. I think we can get somewhere there. You can tell that they're talking about super developer stuff, and we're talking about octopi on rugs. I think that's the moral
Well,
of it.
I guess
Also
while
totally going
they're doing that
delirious
sort
too.
of stuff, is there a feature for both of you guys that is kind of really exciting for you, or has there been something like, what's your fun little surprise Easter egg or favorite feature from today? Because I reckon It's the portrait photos that have the clock in the middle. How am I so simple that that is my favorite feature? I'll think of something better, but you guys go. Lexi, what's your favorite?
Okay, not that. But I think just saying that also does indicate that there are it's not that much exciting stuff to talk about. There's a lot of incremental updates that I feel like have been a long time coming. But to me, the most exciting part of the announcement, and I think the one that is going to have the biggest ramifications for users all across the world, specifically not just those tied into Apple, is the ability to have those FaceTime discussions and conversations with people cross-platform. So Android and on web, if you're, say, running Windows, to be able to bring in different people to that conversation. I think companies like Zoom, like Microsoft Teams and Google Meet are probably going to be a little bit scared, even though maybe FaceTime might be, I guess the context is a little bit more personal. You'd probably use it more with friends rather than through work. I think there could be a gradual shift there, especially if a lot of people are already using it, as part of their day-to-day personal conversations. Maybe it makes more sense to migrate some, especially smaller companies, over to doing that on FaceTime. There's just a lot more tools there. So I think for me, it paints an interesting picture about where potentially Apple might be spreading its wings a little bit in terms of playing nice, playing ball with other platforms and other ecosystems, just a little bit. It's the first time in a long time that we've seen that. So that's exciting to me. Ayaz, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I think it's really more about share play and just the idea of the continuity stuff that's going on with this. Having all of your stuff available on whatever device you have, as long as it's from Apple at this point, that to me actually makes it a lot more livable, right? If I want to arrange a time to watch a movie with somebody, we could do that. It's really simple, as opposed to, like, again, what service do you have? Do you know how to do this? Blah, 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 blah. If I want to just move stuff to my laptop or to an iPad or an iPhone, it's supposed to be really easy. So this idea of being able to share data and move it around in your home or online, that to me is the most interesting thing, because that's going to affect, I think, a lot of people minute to minute. I think that's a really big deal. It's on the watch face.
Yeah, I have to say,
we haven't seen any. So you can continue.
The watch face thing. It's. Yeah, I was just going to say, like, that's a cool feature that excites me. I think for me, the one of the cool features that I probably got most excited about was the privacy controls, because I'm a nerd. But yeah, the nifty ability to just kind of see the I guess a control panel for privacy, having that on your phone really accessible. Some of those notification features were really good as well, and yeah, I'm interested in the idea of the driver's license on your phone and Apple working with TSA to make that usable in airports. I mean, obviously, that's in the US only, right? Obviously a huge market, but as someone who comes from Australia would be like, that'd be really cool, but it's never going to make it over here. So yeah, it seems US specific right now, but that's a really interesting one. I think that's got it's like a feature that's rolling out that has really interesting broad implications, how we start to bring identity documents onto our devices. I think it's super interesting.
And we also haven't seen any hardware yet. So coming towards the end of the announcement, I'm wondering, either is this one more thing or there are no MacBook Pros. Probably the latter. Maybe we're on the 50%, as Ayaz was saying. It's 50-50 that we were going to see hardware. We're on the back end of that 50 now. Don't know.
Lexi, you were talking about FaceTime across platforms, and I just wanted to clarify, are the features of iMessage rolling out cross-platform? Was there any news on that, Lexi or Ayaz? Did you catch anything on that? Because I know it was a question that came up in the comments, and I really focused on the FaceTime being the exciting thing. But did either of you catch that?
As far as I know, there was no mention of cross-platform availability of iMessage. Now, if they snuck it in on a card when they show those things, I haven't noticed that either. So I'll be double-checking that as well, because I've seen those comments or questions in the YouTube chat. As far as I know, they have not mentioned anything about that. FaceTime, they were very proud to show that it worked on browsers. I think if they brought iMessage and they were going to do that, it would be a landmark announcement.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yes, I haven't seen anything about that. And it really does look like FaceTime is going to be kind of that first trial run. iMessage is such an interesting one, because this is a huge it's the same thing. Will Apple Watch ever work with an Android? I don't think the answer is going to be yes. I think there's been plenty of opportunities for Apple to do that in previous times. And with watchOS 8, we maybe got a little sneak peek of potentially how it could be removed a little bit from the iPhone, but we still don't have that complete segmentation yet. And I do not think it would be in Apple's best interest to do that. Same with iMessage, even though there has been obviously that discussion with it in regards to Apple versus Epic as well. So it looks like for now, FaceTime is the key. They'll probably see how this goes. How many people on Android or Windows are going to be joining FaceTime calls? I'm sure that they can look at that data, obviously anonymized, and see if there is an audience for it.
It's so over, and there's no hardware.
It's over. No hardware.
No hardware.
No MacBooks.
No.
Unless like there's like a giant.
Yeah, no hardware. We got updates to pretty much all of the major products, operating
and
system
no Home OS,
and one hardware update. No Home OS. That's right. Okay, so that's it for WWDC. Worldwide Developer Conference is over. Let's recap some of the headline updates that we got today. So we were just talking about how Apple was bringing FaceTime to people who are not necessarily on the iPhone. So you'll be able to have conversations with people who are also on Android and potentially Windows. There's improvements to sharing features within iOS 15 and notification tweaks in iOS as well to use on-device learning to work out which notifications it potentially should surface above others, and a new focus mode as well. And Apple's interpretation or version of Google Lens will also make an appearance on iOS 15 within the Apple camera. So basically using the camera to do object recognition and also text recognition. Say, for example, you have a phone number captured on the image somewhere, either in the camera at the time that you're looking through it or post capture, you'll be able to do things with that information, like say, for example, call that number. Okay, Ayaz, why don't you run us through some of the Mac updates that we saw today at WWDC or Dub. It's hard to say WWDC.
WW anything is hard to say. No, trust me. I have to say WWE Network every now and then. It's a nightmare. Let's see. There was Mac OS was getting a lot of stuff that we've seen on other devices. So one of the linchpins in their discussion, it actually had a breakout, was Safari, which was strange why Safari was such a big deal for Mac OS. But they discussed how Safari is going to be redesigned and it's going to basically kind of get out of your way. So if you're on a web page, the color of the what's called Chrome, the stuff around it, that changes its color as well to kind of match. They've added tab groups. They've discussed having all of your web browsing essentially going from one device to your other device to other device, so iPad, iPhone, and your Mac. They'll all have the same thing. You had SharePlay coming to Mac OS, and SharePlay is this new feature where you can decide to have a watch party with friends if you want to watch music, or not watch music, if you want to listen to music, or if you want to watch movies together, you could do that, and your Mac would be one of the options to do that, which is kind of neat to keep everything in sync. We've had, let's see what else we had, SharePlay. Universal control, that thing was kind of a neat one. This allows you to use the same mouse and keyboard on multiple devices. So if you have a Mac next to an iPad, you want to just drag your mouse over, the iPad's going to recognize that you're trying to reach it, which is kind of a strange but cool idea. I believe we saw the ability to move files that way as well, which is really kind of neat. Instead of having to AirDrop, you can just literally drag and drop with the mouse. That's kind of neat. So those are I think the major things about macOS. Oh, I forgot about the name. That's the big one. It's called Monterey, which is just fine. It's fun to say, and it's not like they went completely nuts. Like Big Sur, I think a lot of people didn't know what that was at first. I wouldn't know what Big Sur was if it wasn't for my wife, because she's from California. I'm like, so we know it's Monterey. Monterey's got a lot of coverage when it came to Finding Dory, the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So that's my Mac OS update.
Love it. All right, Claire, what else did we get that was exciting for you in particular? I know you were into a lot of the privacy stuff, the wallet stuff as well, and the Watch OS update. Why don't you give us a bit of a recap of everything else that excited you?
Huge. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the watch to start off with. We saw some new mental health features, tracking there to really make that device, I guess, more of a wellness device. Watch faces, I mean, that's a game changer right there. And bringing in more of that functionality down onto the watch itself. So less of an echo, the Pepper's ghost of the phone. That was, I think, at my peak delirium when I pulled that phrase out. But yeah, less of a kind of a shadow of the phone itself and making it more of its standalone device. I'm inclined to agree with you, Lexi. I think making the watch work with any old phone is probably not something that's going to happen, because for me, as an Android user, I look at that watch and I go, maybe that's a reason to get an iPhone so I can get both. Mm-hmm. So I think Apple knows that that's how people purchase. Bunch of stuff we saw in the notifications, as we've mentioned, kind of a simplified process there, and bringing in more features to the wallet. So the ability to have your work swipe pass, your driver's license, have RFID, or I think you were saying it was ultra wideband, but basically other cards that you might tap to get in somewhere. I think we saw a Disneyland pass, all of those coming into the wallet space. We saw maps. That was something that we were talking about something else and maps happened, and then we're on to the next theme because this was a really fast and jam-packed press conference today. But AR experiences in maps, which is very cool. So some updates coming there. Updated weather app. We also saw, I'm trying to rack my brains to like the beginning 2 hours ago. It feels like it was a million years ago. We saw obviously some big privacy features in terms of tracking, the features coming to iCloud Plus. So that's some new features around being able to set up a kind of a one-time use email address, and having a backup friend or family member to be able to help you access your account if you're locked out, or to have legacy contacts. If you die, being able to have that account kind of passed over to a legacy contact. They're going to be allowing building apps on iPads, multitasking on the iPad, which you mentioned, IaaS being able to kind of move across devices. iPad widgets was another thing. Brian doing a stellar effort there, trying to keep up with the images on screen of all the stuff I'm rambling through. Find My coming to AirPods. Not a help if they drop down a drain and you can see them but can't reach them. Still very cool. I think the wallet is a cool feature for me, and yeah, the FaceTime video calls being able to go cross-platform is something exciting, because I can see that immediately being a benefit to me for when I call my parents. They'll be able to FaceTime me now and not just call every form of chat FaceTime. But good on Apple for being able to brand, Zoom chat as FaceTime. It's a good brand awareness right there. So yeah, it was a packed day. I really feel like just need to take a moment, have a glass of water, not choke on it. But yeah, there was a lot happening.
Yes, a lot to wrap your head around. Everything that we have talked about today and everything that has been announced is on cnet.com, so you can go there for the full analysis of all the announcements from WWDC. I think for me, one of the most interesting pieces of this puzzle is Apple's push into more health-based data collection, and also the ways it's going to share that information with not only you as the person who all that data is being collected about, but also with your doctor. So the ability to create reports and aggregated information about things like your lab results, for example, or your walking gait or your steadiness. So you'll be able to have the phone detect potentially, are you going to fall in the near future based on the metrics that the phone is measuring about your gait and your stride and things like that. So I think that is very interesting. There's a lot of real potential there in terms of the health and safety aspects of that. And also in terms of the Apple Watch itself, how that all ties into the health app, making sure that you can keep tabs on, say, elderly family members or even kids, keeping an eye on things like heart rate. Maybe you don't live with your direct family members, but you still want to be able to, make sure that they're doing okay, and keep an eye on things like that. I think that will be some interesting, privacy issues and concerns there as well immediately come to mind. But I think that there is a lot of good potential to be dived into there as well. Overall, though, I think there was a lot of incremental updates and things like, the weather app, notes, maps, all those things that we've talked about haven't been too much of a surprise because it's stuff we should have got a couple years ago. So overall, I think that there were important changes that needed to be made. A couple of surprises in there too, but I think a lot of this was catch up, and a lot of this was very much based around everyday users rather than developers. There were only a couple things towards the end, and also discussions of APIs and so on. So this actually felt like the least developer-y WWDC that I've ever been through. I don't know about you two, Ayaz, but has this been a developer-y conference to you? It felt very consumer almost.
Yeah,
in most
I tend to agree with you that
announcements.
there was a lot of consumer-facing features that they were showing off, but I think while we're going ooh and ah, like personally, I was saying that about SharePlay. I think that's really cool. That's going to be really important for people who are creating apps that they want to work with SharePlay. So if they have their own video services, obviously Google's going to work on it with YouTube, I'd imagine, but like smaller venues, smaller channels might have their own ways to do this. So while these are really cool, there's also like when you talk about the health stuff, finding out about this, the gait of a person. I don't know how much data will be accessible by developers generally on that. That's kind of a curiosity of mine, considering this is very sensitive information. So it definitely felt consumer facing, but I'm just wondering, like, if I was a developer, would I just be saying, okay, that I can use, I can bring this into my app. I have a music app. I want it to work with SharePlay. I want my video app to work with SharePlay. I want to use some of this health information to somehow impact maybe even your playlists on your music. You could have that too. Like if your heart rate's supposed to be higher, maybe you need higher energy music or something. Just kind of spitball there. So I think that we saw a lot of cool things that consumers are going to like. I'm just really curious where developers are going to take it, especially with even something like that universal control. Like if you have the ability to move files back and forth as easily as you can between iPads and Macs, what's the next thing? What's a developer going to figure out with that? How can you push that? So definitely consumer facing, but I'm sure developers have they've got their thinking caps on, figuring out what can I do with this.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. There's a lot of questions that, Claire, you can go.
I was just going to say, it's interesting that this is a developer conference and we sort of saw a mix of consumer and incremental updates, and then a little bit kind of geared towards devs at the end. I got to say, though, a lot of people very, very angry that we didn't see new Macs today. And I think that wasn't necessarily going to be a lock because we obviously got the M1 Macs last year. I think time is meaningless now. But yeah, it's not necessarily always a hardware event. We saw new features, being able to use features on your Mac and kind of come across to your iPad, as we're seeing on screen now with that universal control. But in terms of physical hardware, I think the answer behind that is, well, not necessarily, it's not necessarily a big hardware event, the WWDC, but also global chip shortage. You know, we just don't have processors to kind of put in devices. Companies all around the world, car manufacturers, Apple themselves, other tech manufacturers are really, really struggling. So I think maybe that was part of the story here about why there were no new Macs. That was a bit of a rumor. A lot of people may be disappointed that didn't happen, but I think they're still trying to get their ducks in a row with the M1 rollout. We didn't see an M2 or an M1X. We thought maybe that might happen. But it seemed a lot of getting more out of the hardware, getting more out of the processors, rather than giving us new chips, new devices, things like that. So yeah, that's a question that's popped up a bunch in the comments. And yeah, I would have liked a new Mac today that was, had all those ports available. Remember when we were talking about that at the start? Gosh, that would have been so good. But yes, alas, not to be, more about software and more about functionality today. So I think there were some cool features, nothing blowing me out of the water, but I think there's a lot of things that are going to make life a lot easier for Apple users and incidentally, not Apple users with that Facetime feature. So Lexi, I think it's a bit of a mixed bag, but yeah, interesting.
Very much mixed bag. And the big news as well, after the keynote, of course, is the developer betas. So iOS 15, iPadOS 15, watchOS, and macOS Monterey, the developer betas are all going to be made available today for people with developer accounts. Members of the public who want to be a part of the public beta, those are going to be coming out sometime in July. We don't know exact dates yet. Ayaz, let us know. We were talking a little bit during the show about iOS 15 and the compatibility list. Is the iPhone 6S on the list? think you've shared the list with us. Yes.
Would you believe it
It
is?
is like
So it goes. So in the you got the iPhone 6s, the 6s Plus, the iPhone SE first generation, iPhone SE second generation, iPod Touch seventh generation. I'm mentioning the oldest stuff because this is usually where the cutoffs happen. Obviously, iPhone 8, everything above it, iPhone 7 as well, and up will obviously get iOS 15. But the fact that it's coming to SE first gen, SE second gen, the 6s and 6s Plus, these are extremely old devices, and Apple is still supporting them, which likely means this is the last year. So if you're one of those people who decides to sell their devices before they get cut off, this is probably your last year of updates, because this is the 6S, the 6S Plus were supported with the last year's big change with the widgets and everything. So I would imagine that this is going to run out next year. So enjoy it while you can. Everything's coming in the fall, by the way, the official one. So if you don't want to do any of the betas, Mac OS and iOS is and I believe iPad OS, all that stuff, all the changes coming out in the fall.
That's right. So stay tuned to CNET.com with all the latest details. We will be doing wrap videos of all of the information that you've heard about today at WWDC. Ayaz and Claire, thank you so much for hanging out with me for the past 2.5 hours. It's felt like a lifetime, but it has been a pleasure with you too. So thanks for coming on this crazy ride with me.
Thanks, Lexi, for hosting. It's been very fun to share this.
Thanks so much behind the scenes to Brian, Stephen, Bonnie, Viva, Amy, and everyone on the CNET video team. Keep up with us on Twitter and on CNET.com. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.
So long.